Millions of people around the globe suffer from not being able to understand the concept of averages.
If you say on average men are stronger than women, they will note that they know a woman that is stronger than a man.
An Asian who's terrible at math.
A black man who can't dance.
A pit bull who's amazing with children.
An Indian man who hates seeing bobs.
A white dad who hates saying let's rock and roll.
A chick who's never emotional.
An influencer who's never posted another day at the office.
An actor with good opinions.
A Jewish woman who's never sent food back.
Even a time when Stephen Colbert was right about something.
Adding up the total of a group and dividing it by the number of people is a concept many were born unable to understand.
And have no choice but to point out the exceptions.
It's a condition that can't be fixed, and all we can do is make them comfortable.
Which is why we started
KUA, a charity for average unabled humans at patreon.com/theboyscast.
When you donate $5 a month, on average, some of it gets to them.
Which means sometimes none of it will, and there's no need to point that out.
The boys. It's the BOYSCAST. The lads. It's the BOYSCAST. The dudes. Prepare yourself for BOYSCAST. The bros. It's the BOYSCAST. The homies. It's the BOYSCAST. The dudes. Experience the BOYSCAST. The BOYSCAST.
Fellas, we got a big episode today, but I also want to say my tour is almost officially over. San Diego this weekend, and 3 of the 5 shows are already sold out, so come out to that. And then I have Austin, Houston the weekend after, so please make sure you come on to that. Then the only thing I have all summer is going to be Australia, which is Auckland in New Zealand, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, and then nothing till September. I'm going to be in New York. So come out to those shows if you're in San Diego, Austin, Houston, Australia, and also maybe New Zealand, even though I'm not really that fond of how those are selling. And then Danny will be also on the road.
I'll be in the Hammer, Hamilton, Ontario this weekend, Dallas, Texas at the end of the month, Morris Plains, New Jersey, Minneapolis, Edmonton, Vancouver. Just go to my website, dannycomedy.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Destiny. How we doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
What's up?
I feel like if you have a sort of a reputation now of like, even if someone disagrees with you, you're sort of like the best version of that side of the argument. You know what I mean?
I like to think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just a reasonable person.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody says that, right? Yeah. Every word I would describe myself with, I would tell other people these are like red flags to never trust a person.
Sure.
Yeah.
What's an example?
Like if anybody, like I would say, I hope I'm like pretty reasonable. I hope I'm pretty nonpartisan. I try to research and look at all the facts and everything. But like everybody that says that is usually the worst bottom of the barrel fucking like carries water for one side of the aisle, doesn't do any research or fact checking, and is the most partisan hack fuck in the world. So it's like, okay.
Well, I feel like sometimes there's times where like you and like guys like Dave Smith where I'll watch a debate and I'll kind of be like, all right, this is sort of like the two sides of my head thinking, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'll like swing back and forth within the debate. I'll be like, oh, pretty good point. I'm like, pretty good rebuttal.
Yeah. Dave Smith is a guy I'm poised to hate a lot because I disagree with him. I disagree with, I don't care if he's a man or not, I still hate him. I'm not here to co-sign your fucking opinions. But I mean, libertarian, red flag number 1. I see him give a lot of takes I disagree with on Twitter. Red flag number 2, because I'm right about everything, obviously. But I've talked with him kind of once on a Piers Morgan show, so it wasn't much. But I've watched him. He actually seems like he knows what he's talking about, which is already puts you in the 99th percentile of online political commentary. So yeah, I'll give him props.
That's true. And then, well, certain people are just, their brains work quicker for coming up with arguments. Even if, I'm sure you've been in situations where you're arguing with someone and you're just like, I could win this argument even if I'm not right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Certain people are just like really quick with just someone else. They rebuttal and you're just like, oh, I could, judo.
Twist them around, find one weakness in there and then just kind of exploit it.
Yeah.
You know what, the last time, I think we saw you coming out of Louis, but before that, probably the last time I saw you, which is the last political event I did, and I never did another one again, was the Mines thing, and I hated that so much.
Why'd you hate it?
Because the whole thing of the event was they were just like, okay, we're going to have people from different sides together. And then in the dressing room, the James O'Keefe crew, they started like, they ambushed the one guy and there was like a big fight in the dressing room and everyone was like ambushing each other. And the whole thing was, okay, people from different points of view. Before I know it, everyone's like yelling and screaming.
It was in the hallway.
And I was just like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it was like the stairwell. I can't remember who the guy was, but apparently like he said.
I'm trying to remember. He
was like a communist professor guy.
And
it was Ben Burgess, I think.
Yeah, Ben Burgess. Yeah, and they're like, you said the N-word in like the 90s or something. And they were like, but he was like back up against a wall,
shaking. His hand was
he was
shaking.
like surrounded by people, like 4 cameras and all this stuff, and he's just like...
James O'Keefe is a piece of shit. That's another good example of Project Veritas, where Veritas means like truth in Latin or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. Of course.
Yeah, I don't even like know him that well. I was just kind of like, oh, I'll come do a comedy set there. And then basically the whole deal was because a lot of times they're just like, oh, we can never get left-wing people to like argue with them. And then they sort of brought a few in and then like ambushed the guy. And you're like, well, I wonder why.
Jesus, yeah.
That's how I felt about it a little bit.
Yeah, that was...
Is that par for the course for you where you're just like, that's how that shit is? It's content over everything. Like it's never not...
For most people, yeah, almost all of it is. Yeah, it's pretty horrible. Yeah.
It's like real blood sports.
Yeah, which is really disappointing. But I mean, normal politics has gotten to that point. Like all the political punditry and commentary is, whether it's online or even the mainstream media, is all just shit slinging. And but I guess people have always complained about it being this way. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I guess maybe coming from like a live performance background or whatever you'd call it, I feel like maybe I think that there's some level of like the dressing room's off limits or something.
Well, once you invite someone and under the guise that it's not going to be that, and then and I'm sure even the organizers didn't even know.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna go narrow, you want to talk about that particular thing. That's not par for the course. That's wild that you would, because I mean, just think about that. Nobody's gonna go to your events. That makes the organizer look bad. Like, bro, you invited me, and this guy showed up to fucking ambush me with cameras. Nobody's gonna want to bring that guy to events. Like,
well,
that's
also,
not.
I think
that's not par for the course. That's wild.
Yeah, and then you're just kind of like, okay, so that's the type of shit that's gonna happen to me. I don't want to go to. I don't want to go to your event, and then there's a camera crew like coming in my face.
For a guy that's known to do hit pieces.
I think the lesson is if James O'Keefe is at your event, you better be squeaky clean.
Yeah, you're right.
He's going through all the closets.
That guy. If you're about to have gay sex with a guy at your event, you better double check that he's not James O'Keefe. Do you find that because of the internet, the last little bit, it feels like probably in the last year has sort of switched from, kind of a more down the middle political arguments to like all exposed shit.
Oh, like just like kind of drama content.
Yeah, I guess you could call it drama content. Yeah, like even just from like the like black comedy scene, like Cat Williams stuff, all the like P. Diddy shit, but then also even on the YouTube space, like how many creators, their whole thing is just like so-and-so exposed, like every title's that.
Yeah. There's a few things going on. The first thing is it's an election season with 2 candidates who have already run before. So we kind of already know what's up. There's not like a whole bunch of new stuff coming out. You're not like exploring new candidates or seeing, what does this guy have to say? Because we've had both of them as president once. So that makes that boring. That's one part. A second part is, not to sound too partisan, but holy fuck, conservatives have no platform. They're not like talking about like what would they do differently domestically or internationally. It's all just like kind of fuck Biden, and then these like edge like culture war issues. Like how many more times are you going to talk about fucking trans people? Holy shit. And then on a third note, everything in the world has become so political, like everything has, and everything is like bled into these like huge bubbles of people that have these political ideas. It's like at the point to where if you tell me, for instance, I think that the charges in Andrew Tate are made up. If I hear you say that, then I know that you probably support Trump. You probably support Russia over Ukraine. You probably think cancel culture has gone too far. You probably think the COVID vaccine was like a microchip. You probably think that like you can predict like all these political beliefs because everybody has these huge camps that they all belong to. And one of the big things that's really hot right now in, I don't even want to say the right-leaning camp, just kind of like the anti-establishment camp, is there's always a huge fucking pedophile ring right around the corner. It's there. It's somewhere. We didn't find it with Hillary. We didn't find it under the pizza shop. We didn't find it with Biden yet. We didn't really find it with Epstein.
They sort of got one,
not what they wanted. Not nowhere near as much. But P. Diddy, this is the one.
Yeah.
This is the pedophile ring. They're right there. We're so close on this level of indictments, this level of investigation. It's going to be, and it just, every time it's not, they're just like, okay, the next one.
Especially the P. Diddy thing is like, it's almost par for the course when you see like the R. Kelly. You're like, they just might be up to that as rappers. Like,
sure.
But
the conservative bend, because Candace was filling me on all of this, is not just that whatever the fuck he's charged with. It's that there's like a secret underground conspiratorial ring where especially black men are being brought to these parties and drugged up and made to do things and then blackmailed, and then politicians are involved and children are involved, and it's this whole giant fucking thing.
Yeah.
Which I don't even know what the extent of the P. Diddy suit is right now. Is it all that?
It's kind of weird because he's still just like tweeting as if everything's normal. Like I went to his page the other day and he was just like, just had a great lunch today. Like, he's just business as usual. But if you look on the internet, it was like,
I mean, the indictment was pretty crazy, but again, people can lie about stuff, and also, definitely not like some top-down sex trafficking thing where they're like it goes all the way to the president of the United States. You're like, you don't see a lot of rappers hanging out with politicians other than maybe like some fun.
Also, when you say indictment, are there criminal charges now for P. Diddy, or is it still that big civil case?
I think it's just a civil case.
Okay,
yeah,
so
there's no
it's not
criminal
even a
charges.
Oh, it's still just a civil
No,
thing?
he hasn't been charged with anything.
But they raided his house.
Yeah. So I mean,
oh, interesting. Okay,
yeah,
that means that there must be some.
They
like,
raided
criminal
multiple houses, so they have. I mean, they wouldn't do that unless they had something that they thought they could pin against him.
Yeah. There's a criminal investigation.
Well, I think they're saying he has videos. That's the idea. But again, some of those can be true without being conspiratorial. You know what I mean?
They can be, but like it's when you're screaming about a thing over and over and over and over and over again, and then finally in one of the instances it's true. Even when you're right, you're being conspiratorial. Like, just wait for the evidence to come out, like see what happens, and then and the cheering for like, I need there to be somewhere a group of children being raped constantly by politicians. I need this to be the case. It has to be. It has to be. I don't know. It just feels weird and.
Well, I guess that one is a safe conspiracy because there is them. Like there has been the Catholic Church, and there's the foster system. Like if you look at the whole world, there is going to be pedophiles, and to some degree they are going to be organized, right?
Yeah, but it's not the pedophile thing. It's this idea of like all of the world's elite. I guess once you have a certain number of zeros in your bank account, you got to go fuck a kid and get recorded.
You get in on it.
Yeah, so that everybody, the Jews or somebody, has like evidence of it and can control you. I guess
Most likely the Jews.
But,
Probably the Jews.
Probably the Jews.
I feel like with kind of most of that stuff, if you look at it, you're just like. A lot of times just people try to make everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like one thing can be one thing. And then I think to also being in entertainment, I don't know, how exactly social you are or whatever, but like you, after a point, you just know too many people that had conspiracies said about them that wasn't true. Like I know too many people where they're just like, for sure I know that one's not true. Or something they'll say
Or
about,
things
like,
about yourself.
Or things about yourself, right? How many times have been that? But, but I mean, it is kind of weird because you're like, it is case by case. Like there is conspiracies that are true, right?
Yeah, things happen. Yeah.
Yeah, people do conspire to do certain things, but
and sometimes bad things, and sometimes fucked up things. Sometimes it involves multiple people, but you got to imagine like today's world. Bro, every fucking thing in the world leaks everywhere because we got phones recording everything. The idea that there's like hundreds or thousands of people that are all like conspiring on something and nobody's leaked anything. There's not any credible evidence anywhere. There's nothing. Like, I don't know, man. I feel like if I've seen like the president's son's cock and then him like weighing crack on a fucking scale like 50 million times, I feel like there should be some stronger evidence than this than a fucking 35 minutes into a Candace Owens video analyzing a civil complaint.
Yeah, we'll see with the Diddy stuff, I guess.
So what do you think happened with Epstein then? What do you think not like just the short version, what do you think's like the logical explanation of what actually shook down?
I hate to even talk about it because it makes me feel like such a shill and everybody's so bored. I set aside like 2 weeks I want to do like Epstein
research. Must have gotten pretty deep into
I want to go through this because I'm so curious what actually happened. And man, it's so fucking boring. Not only is it boring, number one, I thought, before doing any research, I thought it was like an island with like a ton of like fucking 9-year-olds and shit in like fucking jails in the basement. I thought it was some wild, fucking catastrophic level shit. And I think there is at least one alleged minor. I don't know if it was 15 or 16, but like the setup, it sounds like what he did was he basically said he sent people into like New York City, or he sent people into cities like find some young chicks or whatever, bring them over to my place while they're massaging me, offer them a lot of money, and then I'll offer them more to like touch my dick or stroke me off or whatever.
So basically grab some prostitutes and you're saying a couple of them are probably underage.
It seems like it, yeah. Which is
we
bad.
weren't exactly
you
checking
shouldn't do
IDs.
That. They're abuse of power. They're minors. It's like that's not good, but it's so much less sensational than I thought of like the prisoners of fucking 9-year-old, grade schoolers that are being constantly raped by Epstein and all of his friends. So that was one disappointment. The second disappointing thing is that if you read the whole the abbreviation, it's the Inspector General for the like federal prisons or whatever. If you read like what actually happened, my understanding was one night before Epstein killed himself, the cameras were turned off, and then something happened, and then they were turned back on the next day, and there were like the guards like cleared out.
The guards fell asleep. They basically all fell asleep.
Yeah, and
it's one of those things where you're like, there's just so many factors. You go, this looks so like if you are a conspiracy minded person, there is no way you're not like, okay.
It looks really
It looks
bad.
horrible.
But then when you read the actual report, what you actually find out is it wasn't just that night. These cameras weren't working for weeks, and it wasn't just one camera. It was half the cameras in the
Why are they
fucking
working
prison.
Why wouldn't you have cameras?
Because they don't
working?
have money for it. They'd had like maintenance requests and they'd been working on these. There's documentation for all of this for like weeks where like half the cameras in this prison, they were running, but they weren't recording.
Right.
And that like the jail guards, oftentimes they just didn't fucking check on anybody. And it was a common complaint. It's a common complaint through all of our federal prisons.
Right.
But the takeaway from that story is that the state of our federal prisons is abysmal. And there was tons of documentation for this. And it just happened to be that
It's
this
a lot
guy killed
boringer,
himself.
yeah.
Yeah. But I thought that there were so many more like crazy coincidences rather than like, oh, it's like half the cameras in the prison were working and oh, these guards like never pay attention to fucking anybody. And like,
Yeah.
oh fuck, like it's not as sensational when you get like all the facts of it. Yeah.
Yeah, there was some crazy like instances of corruption though with like his original like when he originally pled guilty in Palm Beach and basically like didn't they essentially
I didn't dig hard into that one. That does look strange.
I mean, that was essentially like he got caught on all these things. They gave him like a total slap on the wrist, like nothing.
And it
where you're
seemed like they had him pretty dead to rights on.
They had him dead. Yeah, they did. They had him on like underage stuff, and like I think they got him for just like pandering, like essentially just he got convicted for like soliciting a prostitute,
Something
essentially.
happened,
But
yeah.
he was doing crazy shit, and then they I don't know what the technical term is, but they basically like put the files away so that they could not be accessed by anybody.
Either sealed or expunged.
Sealed or something. Yeah, they were like sealed or whatever. So then it couldn't be, and it was and again, I don't think anybody debates like if you're some rich, powerful guy, then you have friends who are in the highest regions of government and stuff, and people do favors for friends, like
possibly, yeah,
like when it's
depending,
outside of the law, so. But that was definitely shady.
One of your better points that I've heard you say a couple times where, and you could just kind of reference it now, where you're saying that everyone has like a constellation of beliefs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That, you can kind of, which is probably also how you describe if you trust someone, if you're like, does this person have one, or if they're interesting, does this person have one thing that I can't predict that they think, you know what I mean? But a part of it feels like also it's just because once business models like start to form around these things. And then also, maybe tell me if you think this is a part of why. To me, it feels like a lot of people, kind of spend their whole life getting, really understanding one nuanced topic, and then that becomes very important at the time, and then they become like kind of the smartest person for that moment, and then after that's over, you got to have like a new opinion every day, and you just don't have any opinions. So the only way to come up with them is to like algorithmically fit into this formula.
Yeah, there are some people there are content creators, it happens. I've been doing this for 15 years, so I see the waves, the ebbs and the flows, where a certain movement will come up and be really popular, and some people will ride high on that movement, but they're not really that smart, they're not really that insightful, they can't adapt to anything, and they get big pushing that one thing, and then when that thing goes, they try to make that relevant to everything in the future, and more often than not, they kind of just end up slipping away, because it's just like, I don't need a guy, from 2016 in the gaming community talking about Gamergate, or, if you're obsessed with SJWs, well, now we talk about like woke people, or if you were obsessed with some niche political issue, like red pill stuff was really huge a few years ago with the Tates and everything, and now that's kind of like slid a lot in popularity. And
do you think that stuff's a bit done? Because I kind of look at some of those podcasts where you see like like whatever podcast and all that. I think you've done that, right?
Yeah.
But you'll kind of see and you'll be like, oh, that thing kind of feels like it came and went, and then you go look at the thing and you're like, no, they still do like crazy views.
They do okay views, but like there were a lot of those types of shows and figures, gurus and stuff like popping up. But I feel like the only ones that are really going still are Whatever does okay, but they also have branched out too. They've got like a lot of Daily Wire people that make the rotation on that show. Like they've gotten Dave Rubin on and stuff. And then Fresh and Fit are still going. But like I feel like Pearl has largely dropped off, just Pearly things in London. I feel like all of the other shows that had kind of like bubbled over a little bit have kind of like gone that way. And like the Tates are away from.
Dude, it must be like really depressing to run like an unsuccessful one of those shows where you have to like bring a panel of girls on and you're like, you guys fucking sluts. And it's like 10 people are watching.
Yeah, I mean, you do that every day. And
it's hard. Right, so the only reason they probably go on is because they've like pumped their OnlyFans, right?
Yeah.
For a lot of the girls, they get a lot of subscriptions and stuff off that.
Yeah, and it's they get good sound bites. But I mean, I remember like a year ago when they got some big write up in like the New York Times or Wall Street Journal or something. I remember you would go and they were getting like 30,000 people live, and I think it's definitely a fraction of that now.
It's like a few thousand now, isn't it?
It's something. But I remember being like, damn, 30,000 people watching this live right now. That was.
Do you not think there's any utility for guys in some of that stuff?
No.
Well, why I kind of think sometimes you'll have like a friend that is like just like terrible with women, you know what I mean? And sometimes they almost need someone to shake it up to be like, dude, like stop being a pussy. Like no one's gonna help you. You need to get your shit together. And then once that happens, they probably don't need that message every single day, but sometimes people do need like a shake up to, you know what I mean?
I can agree with you in principle. Like the old pickup artist communities or the old, like prior to Andrew Tate, red pill stuff, I think there was some value there, even if a lot of it was
just like a brain shift sometimes.
Kind of. Well, a lot of it was like phrased very misogynistically, but there were like elements of truth to everything that was being talked about. So, for instance,
psychology.
Yeah, like if you're talking to a girl, like ignore the bitch, like wait a day before you respond and make her want you because women need guys, blah blah blah. And it's like always phrased really poorly. But like if you're a type of guy that's ultra fucking clingy and you are texting women too much, having an artificial timer like I'm not going to respond to this text for 6 hours might actually help you a lot. It
100%.
might. But nowadays, the red pill is like cheat on your girlfriend and she'll love you even more. Now it's like it's a whole other fucking world of detached from reality.
I guess you run out. You can't just say the same thing. You have to keep pushing.
Yeah, but that's a hypothesis you test one time and go, yeah, that didn't work.
But I'm saying that like the old stuff, or however misogynist you wanted to call it, which it was, at least there were a lot of elements of that. Like if you followed it, even if it kind of made you a shitty person, it worked. I don't think the current stuff works. That's why I think the shelf life on it was so short. Because like there's never been a period ever in the history of the entire United States where a girl is sitting across from a guy at dinner and she sees he's got like Andrew Tate on his phone and she's like, oh yes, a real man for me finally. Like that's never happened.
Yeah, probably not. And I mean, it was just a bunch, you know.
None of those Miami bitches are into that. You're around that.
They might be, but they're not looking for love. They're looking for money.
Well, that's what I mean.
Totally different thing.
They just want to hang out on a boat.
You're right. They might not say real man, but they might say this guy might buy me a purse.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Or a bracelet, yeah.
Or something, yeah. They just love boats.
I feel like, because then there was that, and then there was also sort of the, I guess like Daily Wire sort of, what do they call it? Like traditional conservative sort of movement.
There was some fighting there, yeah. The tradcons versus the red pills.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that even because I saw like Fresh and Fit had some drama with like guy got a girl pregnant, and Steven Crowder has his big like divorce thing right now. And it was kind of, it almost feels to me a little bit like, for like left-wing people, the 20s are their most like puritanical, and then they have to like get jobs and all that stuff. But for like right-wing people, it's almost 30s are sort of the most puritanical, because you're sort of like, all right, you got to have a family, but they're all just starting this stuff. They have like a 3-year-old kid, like they're just 4 years into marriage, and then maybe your kid turns out to go to jail. Then you get divorced from your wife. And, you know, half the people, real life happens and no one's perfect. So it's harder sell as, you know, you kind of get older and life happens and there is no perfect answer.
Yeah. And it's like, it's so cringy because people are making decisions. People are making like financial and familial and relationship decisions like politically. And I'm like, life is so much more.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, I'm not calling anybody out. If you think I'm talking about you, I'm not, okay? But I just had a conversation with a friend recently, and they're like, oh, yeah, like I've been struggling, I'm trying to like buy a house or whatever. And I'm like, oh, well, why are you trying to buy a house? Like, I know this person, it seems like they're kind of like mobile or whatever. And like, oh, well, I feel like the gap between homeowners and renters is growing. Oh. And I'm like, okay, hold on. All right. There's a lot of good reason. I'm a millionaire. I don't own a house. Okay. Fuck that. Okay. There's a lot of good reasons not to own a house. You don't have to buy a house because of some, and through talking to them, they might just give it, it felt like a very politically driven decision. Like, oh, like buying a house is important because I don't want to be a rentoid forever. And it's a bad thing to rent. And I'm like, there's a lot of bad things about homes too. Like there's pros and cons to everything. If you want to buy a house, then buy a house. You get a lot of freedom to have a house. You can stay in one area for a long time. You could, fucking landlord. But also if the roof or the foundation
might complicate your relationship.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. You can't move for 5 years unless you want to lose a fuck ton of money. You don't have any liquidity in the house, even though people say you're building value. But I'm just saying that like that's a financial decision. Don't make it politically. People do the same with relationships where it's like, oh, well, like I don't know if I can date this girl. Like she's got like 4 bodies and she's 26. And I heard that like if a girl has 4 bodies, the studies say that there's a 45% chance. And it's like, what the fuck
That's
is wrong
young
with you?
retard shit though.
Yeah. I'm like, bro, you don't need to make decisions based on your political orientation. Like parts of things that play into your politics are going to play into your personal decisions. So for instance, like a conservative is more likely to be Christian or Christian more likely to be conservative. So being Christian might influence your relationship choices, but don't make relationship choices based on your fucking political outlook. That's crazy.
But some of that's just like young, like idealism. Like, dude, every 14-year-old's like, yeah, I want to marry a 10 that's this and this. And you're like, the same as girls, kind of I feel like a lot of dudes on the internet get mad at the girls that are just like, I need a guy that makes 8 figures and this and that. You're like, that's not who she actually dates.
Yeah.
She dates like some fucking homo.
Says, and then she waits around for 2 years and goes, all right, turns out that's not enough.
Yeah, so I'm not getting that. Yeah.
Yeah. the everything being so political is like brain rotted people on fucking everything. So like even and then like you said before, like relationships are complicated, like a lot, like
and life is
and it's hard to tell. You know, it's funny because like I was in prior to this, I had a marriage. I'm divorced now. It was an open marriage, so a lot of people were saying that like, oh well, when your marriage ends, it's going to be because it was an open marriage. It's like I've had normal relationships end. Nope, it wasn't because they were closed marriages. Or like Steven Crowder and his wife are having like the most brutal fucking online fight of the world. Nobody says it's because they were Christian or heterosexual or whatever. Like relationships are complicated and messy. There's a lot of shit that happens, and even questions where it's like, who initiated the divorce? It's like that doesn't even tell you anything. One, anybody can be a petitioner to divorce. It doesn't matter. And two, like, what if I get divorced from my wife because I hate her, and the reason why I hate her is because she's shitting all over the bedroom? Like, whose fault is that? Is it mine for divorcing or her for shitting all over the bedroom? Yeah. Or what if she shits all over the bedroom because I hate her and I poison her fucking food? Well, now whose fault is it, right? And what if I poison her fucking food because she poisoned my fucking dog because she didn't like seeing my dog anymore? Like, I'm just saying, like, relationships are complicated, and this like one-dimensional analysis of like 73% of divorces are started by women, and the reason why is because they hate men. They're trying to upgrade to chads and hypergamy. It's like, bro, what the fuck?
Well, a lot of times did they just take the positives and remove the negatives? Like even the trad wife thing, the amount of guys that are just like, oh, that'd be sick. I'm like, yeah, if you work 30 hours a week and you just have like nonstop time, if you're a busy as fuck dude, the last thing you want is a girl who does nothing but like want you around.
And none of these guys, like Ben Shapiro is probably like the only guy I know of, I think, that leads by a pretty strong example, and that like he seems to have a really positive relationship. He speaks really highly of his wife. She seems to help him a lot with things, and they've like met. And
has a very conservative personality.
Yeah, and he seems like he has a healthy relationship. Yeah, although he doesn't even talk relationships or push that as much as like everybody else. But everybody else in the scene, has like crazy shit going on with their relationship.
Well, there is on aggregates. Like if you are saying like, hey, you're better off. The same. I mean, you've talked about like this in terms of college, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like there's a lot of people that would say, college is kind of a scam now, and there's probably some truth to like spending $100,000 on like a BA is a ripoff.
Yeah,
the same
out of state school. You're a poor kid, and you like
on some bullshit. Yeah. And some people. It is true that some people probably come out of college like almost stupider if you go for the wrong thing.
Sure,
but if you don't really know what you're doing, that might be a better pathway, right? So just the same thing. I think that conversation happens with like marriage and all this sort of things. Like, yes, the less like alternative lives are better if you can handle that. If you're just like a normal person, like Ben Shapiro's advice is probably more likely to lead to the better path. The same way that saying, hey, you're probably better off to take a normal job than be a fucking comedian. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
But you need to be like, yeah, I need to make that struggle. So I think
I know that, and you're just like, yeah, I know that, and I'm just still doing this.
Just be realistic about what you're telling people. Just be realistic about like the pros and cons, because everything's got pros and cons, and be honest about like why things work and why some things don't work.
Well, I think that's like so much of like the normalization shit. Like that shit did drive me nuts because it was very like we need to normalize everything. But then obviously the conservative side of that is like, nothing,
the narrowest fucking path.
Yeah, nothing. No one should ever like, but no one would ever do anything great if But should you encourage every kid to drop out to try to be a rapper? Like probably not. Mm-hmm. Like they should have some adversity a little bit on their way to that pathway, maybe.
Yeah. I just wish people were more honest about the pros and cons of everything. But
the other thing about online stuff too is you almost find one thing that's the problem. Like, for libertarians, it would be like the government. For Bernie Sanders, it would be like billionaires. For like feminists, it's men. Like you kind of find your one, and then you plug every answer into that thing. And I guess that's a part of everything being political right now. But
yeah, I talk about that a lot. It's like you should have a toolbox of ways that you can view the world, like feminism or critical theory or whatever, MRA, red pill, whatever. Like these are all like different tools that you can use to get a different perspective of the world. But anytime somebody has like one thing that fixes like everything, like, I feel like I could talk to somebody and say like, yeah, when I was 7 years old, I had a really traumatic experience because my uncle raped me. And they were like, that's because the Fed is printing way too much money. And your uncle was responding to these horrible, and it's like, oh, you supported Ron Paul in 2008 and you're a staunch libertarian. Okay, I get it. It's the Federal Reserve, right? Or like a mass shooter happens and you've got feminists tweeting out like, this is what happens when toxic masculinity runs amok. And you find out the guy's like a sociopath. And I'm like, okay.
Well, they were saying that in New York. They were just like, there was like a big article. We talked about it. What was the publication? But they basically said the guys who were like basically crazy guys, but like punching women and shit.
Yeah, punching women, yeah. It was MAGA fueled. It was from Salon. It was like, there goes
Salon.
MAGA fueled rage.
Yeah. This guy is probably fucking crazy. That's probably more of the thing than the toxic masculinity. Yeah. This guy's probably fucking insane.
All people who would have in a different era been in a mental institution. And
Although
they
there
don't
were a
have
lot of times
institutions anymore.
in LA, I remember walking through the homeless encampments that are under every single underpass, and you'll see sometimes women get attacked, and the guys are screaming about their disdain for third wave feminism. They're on Twitter,
they're big on that.
So maybe in LA they're toxically masculine, but for the rest of people, I think they're fucking crazy.
Yeah, they're mental.
But I feel like to some degree, you're right that the reason is because everything got political, but like, it's almost like politics has to be like the second thing, because I think that's one of the reasons why comedy is good, but like sports is a little bit like that. Tech, if you talk to like, that's why a lot of times I think like a lot of tech guys have good opinions, because it's like their first thing is, making money, and then their second thing is politics. So they have another reason to be honest other than politics. You know what I mean?
And they get really penalized for like lying, essentially. Like if they don't actually see the world the way it is, then like if they, put these kind of filters over it that aren't actually real, then they get penalized. They can't just have these.
Maybe, yeah. Depends on the guy you're talking about or what we're talking about. But
well, I think that, okay, so if I was to say whether I wanted to listen to someone's opinion, you know what I mean? So let's say someone was saying whether or not I think that Trump's going to win, right? Okay, well, if I look at how they actually are placing bets, someone's saying that I think New York's going to shit, and they're actually, pulling all their business out of New York. I know that they actually believe that.
Oh, yes, I agree with that.
Whereas there's so many people that have these very strong beliefs, but you're like, you don't have any reality to anchor it first. It kind of comes, the politics is first, and then all your actions are second, and they don't really have to follow as much.
As soon as you start betting, I wish there was a central exchange where if you were a political commentator, you were forced to, even if it was with fake currency, that you had to bet, or there were markets for, you had to participate in them in order to show that the predictions you're making, that you have an appropriate bet for the level of conviction that you're expressing for what you're saying, because humans don't understand intuitively percentages at all, but as soon as you start betting, those percentages become very, very, very real. Like if some guy says there's a 99% chance that Trump is winning the next election, then I should be able to say, oh, well, I'll bet you 100 to like what would it be, $50,000? That's like better odds even than or 100 to.
I always tell that people, you can bet on it in Vegas, go do it.
I'll do $100. You give me 9,000 if we're right, then we should be good, right? I'm giving you better odds than you're predicting. When I started doing that for people, I noticed that they didn't even reject me or accept it. Instead, they actually became incredibly reasonable. Like they had all the information there, it was just blocked before because of the social pressure and all the bullshit. Because they were like, well, Trump could get sick, or like maybe one of these indictments is real, or maybe he gets convicted, or maybe something. I was like, oh, so you knew this before? You weren't matching the level of conviction for the information you had until somebody, like you said, forced you to stake a position on it.
Yeah, and that's why. So a lot of times, like being a good social commentator or a good, an analyst of any sort, you're looking for almost like discrepancies in a market, right? And I think a lot of times, would you don't think so?
You're speaking about an idealized form. What happens right now is a shit show of horrible fucking companies. But I agree with you that you're right. Is it true?
Yeah,
It's almost like a psychological arbitrage. I'm trying to find like this is what the world's saying, but I think I have a better prediction.
I think they're a little bit wrong. Like, and sometimes it's even something like this guy sucks. Yeah. Like everyone's like, dude, that guy sucks, and you're just like, nah, I don't think he's as bad as you're saying he is. You know what I mean? Then you kind of take that position. Eventually, everyone realizes you were right, and then you kind of were
gain credibility. Yeah, that should be how it goes.
You guys were like, you were overshooting how much that guy's a liar, and you're kind of looking for these like discrepancies in what the mob is saying versus what's reality. And if you get that right, I think then you're doing a good job of it.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen. Instead, no, it's just everybody. You do that, but you only do that to the other side that all your people disagree with anyway.
Exactly. Well, people just want to find the people who are just saying the thing they already agree with.
But isn't that only politics? Because that's why I was saying when you have something like whether it be tech or whether it be even comedy, like whether you make a good, whether your jokes are good or just like you were kind of right about this thing, like if there's like another first order thing before the second order thing, if you're politics and you get it wrong, like you're just trying to convince those people now, like I was actually still kind of right, like you know what I mean?
There's always a reason why, yeah.
So maybe that's why like politics sometimes it's like inevitable to get there.
Yeah. Plus they always say, well, then you can vote for the other guy, which you hate, so you'll just have to accept me with.
Fellas, it is important to me that the supplements I take are of the highest quality, and that's why I've been taking AG1 for about 2 years now. Every single morning, it is the first thing I do. If you have not yet tried AG1, it is the move. This is all in one. Every single morning, the first thing you do before your coffee, and
while you're brewing the coffee, you hit the brew button and then you go make up your AG1 every day.
And unlike many supplement brands, AG1 conducts relentless testing to set the standard of purity and potency. AG1 is constantly searching for how to do things better. 52 iterations of their formula and counting. Their team is always finding better ways to source, test, and aim to find the best quality ingredients available. Researched and developed by in-house team of scientists, doctors, nutritionists with a decade of experience in their respective fields. So many people have asked me if AG1's the real deal. Trust me, there's a reason why I've been doing it every morning for this long. For AG1, quality isn't just a buzzword. It's a commitment backed by expert-led scientific research, high-quality ingredients, industry-led manufacturing, rigorous testing at each step of the process. AG1 goes above and beyond industry standards. Taking care of your health doesn't have to be complicated. AG1 simplifies it. You replace multiple health supplements like multivitamins, digestive aids, immune support, and more in just one simple scoop. They got prebiotics, probiotics, digestive enzymes for gut support, vitamin C and zinc to support immune health. So we've partnered with AG1 for so long because they make such a high quality product. I genuinely look forward to drinking every day. So if you want to replace your multivitamin more, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription at drinkag1.com/boyscast. That's drinkag1.com/boyscast. Check it out. And have you ever tried to break a bad habit? You felt like you're climbing Mount Everest in flip-flops or worse, toe shoes, potentially?
Tough.
Ooh, no thank you.
Tough.
Not a fan. Well, we've been there too. But there is a breath of fresh air for you, and that is Fume. It's not about giving up. It's about switching up. Fume takes your habit, simply makes it better, healthier, and a whole lot enjoyable. By now, you probably know what habit we're talking about, and I'm sure statistically, there's a lot of people listening to this podcast that have been trying to quit, so give Fume a shot. It's an innovative, award-winning flavored air device that does just that, and it's instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. Instead of electronics, it's completely natural. Instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy, makes replacing your bad habit easy. Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while you're breaking your habit. I play with the Fume while I'm editing. A lot of times I'll bring it on. I have a couple of them. I have one in my suitcase right now. I bring them in the road when I'm in the hotel room. Tastes good. The feels cool. The looks good. Beautiful wood. And Fume just released their magnetic stand for your Fume, so there's no more losing it around the house. It's built for fidgeting in mind. You can spin your Fume around on it. Start the year off right with the good habit by going to tryfume.com/boyscast and getting the journey pack today. Fume is giving listeners of the show 10% off when you use the code BOYSCAST to help make starting the good habit that much easier.
Yeah, and you have to understand, like, when you go to political people to listen to them, there's this truth or fact. That's like an aesthetic that people wear. It's not actually like a principled commitment. When you're going to a guy like this, you just want him to reinforce, like, the things that you know are true and to give you, like, the next set of marching orders for whatever the talking points are for the next case. Like, do you think anybody's honestly tuning into anything on Fox News or Stephen Crowder or Tim Pool to figure out what's going on in the New York case with Trump? No, of course not. They're there for the marching orders for, like, why is the new jury bullshit? Why is Bragg's a piece of shit? Why is, why are these charges all fake and bullshit? Like, that's what you're going for. Like, if you were to turn on a conservative, commentator, a pro-Trump guy, and he's like, you know what? Actually, I read the indictments on this, and I've listened to all the statements. I think there's some credibility here. That guy is not going to be. People aren't going to listen. Like, oh, that's interesting.
You won't even get asked back. Like, if he goes on Fox and you go,
your family's going to revolt.
Yeah, they say that. They're like, okay, well, you can't come back on our program anymore. Like,
yeah, maybe I'm being a little idealistic about it.
I agree with what you say. That's how it should be. I think that would be really cool. We've got people staking out different positions like, oh, well, who's correct? But people will say wild shit. Donald Trump's going to win in a 50-state landslide, and it's like, not any loses. And it's like, where's the credibility or the accountability? Yeah.
I always kind of like it even when I find one where I think, like, even like, we've kind of made fun of all the Lizzo stuff because she's become like the poster person for, whatever, being fat and stuff like that. Yeah. But then, like, I kind of saw her in a bunch of interviews and I was like, oh, I think Lizzo's funny. And I'm like, everyone's like trashing her, and I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure she's funny. Like, I kind of like when I find those positions where I'm like, no, I know everyone thinks this. I think she's actually kind of cool. Like, you know what I mean?
It might
like, you
be,
kind of I like finding those little discrepancies, even when it's against everyone.
It might be, maybe I'm guessing a little bit, but maybe for a comedy, because that's kind of what you're looking for. Like, you're trying to push a little bit. Like, I imagine it'd be kind of boring to go and see a comedian that just like agrees with every single thing that you say, and all the jokes are like 100% lining up. Like, I imagine somebody who's supposed to make parts of the audience feel a little bit uncomfortable or laugh at themselves or whatever. All right, more so than a political guy.
But tech, you'd be like, imagine everyone's like, yo, this idea is terrible, and you're like, they're wrong. You know, the same thing. You'd be like, that you found this, like you found this. I hope everyone thinks I'm wrong because I know I'm right.
Right.
The best thing that could happen.
Bigger opportunity.
But there's no reward for like having that position in political punditry. Like,
No.
you don't get rewarded.
There's no like score. There's no real score being kept. Like, maybe it's probably closer to something, if you have a big following on Twitter, then you start making a bunch of prognostications that are wrong. You lose a fraction of your audience who goes, this guy sucks, but you probably gain a new fraction who likes you because they agree with what you're saying, and it just
if anything, if you make bold or brave predictions that go against your audience, even when you're right, you can get punished for it. A really good example of that is when Fox News, before anybody else, felt very confident that they could call the election in Arizona.
Yeah.
And their audience
went
and
crazy.
Donald Trump fucking hated them for that. Trump almost blamed Fox News. I think there were either texts or phone calls where he was saying it's your fault that like we couldn't close the election.
He said he'll never go back on there. Right?
Yeah.
He's like, I'll never go back on Fox News.
Yeah,
Like,
and the prediction was
dead to
right.
me.
Yeah. So where's the reward for? Why the fuck would you even be honest when that's not what you're being rewarded for in that arena?
Yeah, that hurt them. That did. Yeah, I forgot about but that really hurt them. Like, a lot of their base was like, "Why would you do this?" And
So when you think of it,
because I guess they're like, "Hey, we are at the end of the day like trying to be journalists."
The reporters are at Fox News. They do at all mainstream publications. The reporters try to do the best. They've got leanings and biases for sure, but nobody's out there telling blatant fucking lies. Generally, that's pretty rare. There might be slants, or they leave some stuff out, or you could have been more fair.
Omission.
I mean, also it might just be like you're so in the like propaganda bubble that you don't think it's a lie anymore.
Yeah,
because you have to for self-preservation, or your brain would go nuts.
But I wish more people would acknowledge that. Like, the vast majority of journalists, people working in government, they're trying to do the right thing. Sometimes they get it wrong, for sure. And there are times when they need to be held accountable or called out, or something needs to change. But you can't change them if you're going in being like, you're a fucking Satan-spawned demon fuck. That's why you're doing this. You want us to fucking die. You want to destroy the country. Like, no, they're probably trying to do the best they can, and they're fucking up for reasons that we need to understand so we can change it. But
I guess bureaucracies just get so much rot. Like, I don't know, you saw the NPR thing recently.
Which one?
Basically, like one of the main.
Yuri, what's his name? He basically just came out and said, he's like, I've been working here for 25 years, and now our whole audience is like, we have 87 registered Democrats, 0 registered Republicans.
He's basically saying
staff. And he goes, it used to be like we had a pretty evenly balanced audience, and now it's just like all.
New York Times has huge problems with this as well. The ACLU had a lot of still has problems with this as well after Trump too. Yeah, for sure. There are huge problems where we're segregating more and more in society into different arenas, and it's not good.
Yeah, but the thing what he's saying with NPR, and he just got suspended today actually for essentially. I don't think he got fired, but he got suspended. But what he's essentially saying, and he's right, it's like there's no coming back. Like, the NPR is not going to be able to claw back. Like, I don't know if you like, CNN's been trying to do it for the last year, where they'll bring on like Ted Cruz or something, and I'm like, what the hell is Ted Cruz doing on CNN? But they're trying to tack back to the middle a bit, and it's like almost too late.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Everything is going pretty crazy in terms of like factual accuracy and epistemic realities and echo chambers, and yeah, it's gotten really weird.
I think so, but that's why maybe I guess the one thing is to look at it, and it's almost like it's not even relevant why they're doing it, whether they're propagandists or they actually believe it or they're trying their best. It's almost irrelevant. The probably truth is that they're just going to get crushed by like a new thing. Like, some of these things, it's hard to, sometimes like change old ships to moving times,
Yeah, but we have to be careful. It's like when socialists are like, we need the revolution. And it's like, bro, if a revolution happens in America, the next government's not going to be a socialist one. Okay? You're fucking crazy, all right? Yeah, the guys that are kissing the BLM shoes in Seattle, you're the last people in the world that want a violent revolution in this country, trust me. But But people need to not have this
And
assumption.
you think the same thing with media a bit.
Yeah, that what comes next might not necessarily be better. People have this misconception. I said this at the Minds thing, and I got booed like crazy. People think that humans are truth-seeking machines. That's not true. Truth is an instrument that we use to make ourselves feel better. Usually those things align. But when those things fall out of alignment, where you've got uncomfortable truth versus thing that makes me feel good, people almost naturally gravitate in this direction because that's just what our minds are equipped to do. It's how we evolved. And it's a very unnatural process to say, like, okay, well, let's try to be a little bit more likely to follow truthful things, even if I have to admit that I was wrong about something or this makes me uncomfortable. But if people assume that we're going in this direction when we're oriented in this direction, then they don't try to correct for it, and then we just keep heading further and further in that direction. So yeah, like if somebody will say to me things like, I don't trust the CIA or the FBI, I don't trust any of the mainstream media, and it's like, okay, I guess that's fair. And they're like, look at this story by Russia Today, look at these stories by Al Jazeera, look at it's like, okay, wait, why the fuck do you trust this shit but you don't trust our fucking shit? What the fuck?
You just went the other way.
Yeah, why the fuck would you trust any like actual Putin state-controlled, state-run media over? And you think they're all the same? They have the same motivation thing too, right? That's just it's
literally just like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. At that point,
or more, it seems like that, but what's really happening is you just have to remember people are selecting for things that make them feel good. Yeah. When I turn on this guy's media program, it's because I want to hear the marching orders. I want to feel like I'm good and safe, and that everything in my world makes sense, and that's what it's supposed to be. Yeah.
Well, I guess the difference is the one revolution is essentially, hijacking a government to make them do it, and the other revolution is like natural market forces.
Yeah, but it's the effect might be the same in terms of how it affects the people, but the cause might be different. But it's important to recognize the cause so that we can fix it, because if you don't have the cause correctly recognized, then you're not going to be able to fix the problem. Like if some guy says, I hate black people, and you're like, okay, but like you find out that this guy has grown up in an all-white town, he's met like one black person his entire life. Well, my guess is if you just meet some black people, you're not going to feel that way anymore. But if another guy is like a card-carrying fucking Nazi and he says it, well, changing his beliefs on, another race of people is going to be way different than the other guy that just lacks exposure.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, sometimes they probably, to some degree, almost maybe the like mainstream media and then the like alternative media that is like essentially running against them in some ways is like a good relationship, because even if you think about like, I mean, I can think in our industry, but in every industry, like one of the telltale signs that they're off the mark is they start telling you the wrong picks. Like they're like, oh, these are the top musicians. They start telling you this movie's, the most popular when no one actually watched it. They start telling you this comedian's the new guy, and anyone who follows it's like nobody cares about that person. You know what I mean? Sure. So they start making they start taking companies. They go, they start doing the big profiles on companies. So they start essentially trying to rig the game. And the more that there's like an alternative to that kind of, to be able to be like, yo, that's crazy. It forces them to be like, sort of
you
tell
have to
the
correct.
Yeah, that forces them to correct a little bit.
That can happen, but then but in other times, again, I don't know, I feel like the narratives become so disconnected from reality. How many times on the right have you heard this over and over again? Go woke, go broke. Go woke, go broke. When the fuck is that happening? When are they going to go broke? I thought Budweiser was supposed to be non-existent now. Like, what happened? How do they still fucking sell beer?
You don't think there's any places that like went broke from just going like crazy progressive?
I was looking at it the other day. I don't know the Planet Fitness, where Planet Fitness is at, but I was looking at every other company, and like and now maybe you could say that they would have been, their share price would have been higher, but I think every single one of them recovered whatever losses. Like Target, Budweiser, like if you would have bought their stock when all that shit happened,
well, they unwoked.
But did they? Or like, I mean, Target was basically, they're like, their people are harassing our employees, so we're just gonna get rid of these things.
I mean, definitely the comedy television industry. There's been like, 3 big ones, big movies, stuff like that. I mean, part of it is the changing landscape or whatever, but you can even just look at, think about the people like you and people like, just look at like the streaming community of Aiden Ross and all these people, like the amount of that, you can look at most people in the industry where you're like, the industry would have a cut of this if this was before, and now they don't. So maybe not go broke entirely, but you're not profiting off the talent the way you used to be.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, like things, there are good business decisions, there are bad business decisions. Sometimes, like, being woke has really big benefits in that you open your audience up a fuck ton. And then it's got downsides in that sometimes your shit can be incredibly fucking corny depending on how you deal with it. But then on the flip side, if you're like, well, I'm not going to be woke, we're going to be hardcore and edgy, and like, you can do that and appeal to like a particular type of audience a lot more, but then you also like might lose part of your viewer base as well because they don't want to see the edgy shit. It's all just like balances and trade-offs, but like people are like, they have
like
this
with the
political
Kaepernick
principled
stuff, like,
shit.
you know, how many people do you really think are still sticking to the I don't wear Nikes anymore like 6 years later?
Can't imagine.
Like 6 months
Like
later,
maybe that one shoe cycle, like one cycle of purchasing shoes, they go, I bought Adidas this
we were
one
going to
time,
do a
and then-
sketch. It was stuff swap, and it was like Republicans are boycotting this, and they had the liberals are boycotting this, and then just swap the shit. Just swap the shit.
You make a store for it in exchange. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of? No, I'm sure you guys have both heard of it. But do you remember the Malcolm Gladwell book? I think it was a 10,000 Hours one, or maybe Limitless, or whatever. But
Tipping
he
Point?
sort of talked. It might have been Tipping Point, but he sort of talked about this with the Airwalk example, where I think you could talk about this with all politics stuff, where he was kind of saying like, whenever you're catching like a real wave that's going to be gone, it's like you actually, if you want any longevity, you actually want to like flame down that wave. So like whether that be like being hyper progressive or like leaning all into just like America, you know what I mean? You almost want to like fan those flames down.
You want to smooth it out a bit.
When you're just when you're just getting like these crazy short term bumps on something, it's like if you actually want a long company, you actually step away from that yourself and let yourself lose some momentum in the short term for better for the long term.
I agree with the philosophy of that. There's people, you just have to recognize what you're doing when you're doing it. There are huge movements that can start online, and you can grow on the back of that movement, but you just need to be aware that once the movement recedes, a lot of your fan base is going to recede too, because you grew it on that hype, and when the hype goes away, you're going to lose a lot of it. So I think
you can't like change it all probably.
Yeah, I think that, because you suffer audience capture, you got to be careful how you move after you've gotten a certain type of audience. You can ride those waves, but you have to be careful and understand that you're going to lose a chunk of it eventually, and you need to convert those people into different types of viewers or fans or
that's a good
customers.
point.
Yeah, but that could be very hard, and it just depends on how you do it. But you have to be aware that if you're growing with a wave, you're going to collapse with the wave as well. And
it's slow, right?
What's slow?
You know, the same as probably converting customers, like from if you have a product, you know.
The conversion is slow.
It's a slow burn. It's not, you know what I mean? It's something you're like always constantly doing a little bit.
Yeah, the conversion is slow, but not the initial growth from the waves. That's why people jump onto them, because it's like, why the fuck would I grind this shit when I could hop on this trend and get huge? But the problem is those people, when they lose anything, it's very hard, and I'm sure you guys experience this too, but in the YouTube and streaming world, if you have 1,000 viewers for 1 year, and then in 1 month you get 10,000 viewers, and then for the rest of the year you've got 2,000 viewers, you feel like shit.
Of course, right?
You feel fucking horrible, because in your mind, that 10,000 number is there, and what the
anchor
fuck
to that,
happened?
yeah,
And it's
that's
like,
the high
bro, you
watermark.
doubled your concurrent viewership. What's wrong? And it's like, fuck me. And then they quit. They can't handle it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So some people can't handle the rise of the wave and then going down a little bit. It's like, it's okay. You're converting. No, fuck that. I was up here. I need to get back.
Just like investing, it's just the same as like some people just can't handle sometimes those wild swings when you're like the Warren Buffetts are like, I check every 3 months to see what's going on, and that's about it. And
yeah.
It's probably the same in normal life. Like if you were, hey, let's, you have a wife or whatever, and you're just like, I want to convert us into like a fitness couple, and that was not who you were.
Sure.
It's not like tomorrow you come in and you're like, everything's out of the cupboard, you're doing this. It's like, that's just like, you'll just lose her, or you're, whatever, just live in turmoil. But if those are all slow burns. If you're like, we're going to convert our family into kind of this family now, you know?
Yeah.
We're a paintball family now.
we're
like
an
small,
influencer family,
manageable-
and then 6 months later, your kids are tied to a pipe in the basement, and you're hitting them and stuff, and you go,
Depending on how old they are, they probably deserved it.
We sort of grazed past this, but I wanted to actually ask you about it, because obviously I know that there's two things, the Israel stuff, but also from a legal standpoint, because I know the Trump stuff's happening here. I actually thought it would be funny to go there and ask people how did they pay off their prostitutes at the trial. But like, what do you think's actually going to happen? Like right now with the Stormy Daniels one, with also I
you have to
kind
think
of
from
see all
a-
this stuff from a normal person.
you have to
but I'm
think
not
from a
tapped in.
statistical standpoint. He has 91 charges. Like if he gets off on
91 charges?
all 91 of them
Across 4 cases.
across 4 cases, but you're like, you have to figure one of them is gonna stick.
He's definitely getting convicted of something. The thing that sucks is there is a federal case relating to retention of classified material and obstruction of justice in Florida, but it's a federal case for the Mar-a-Lago.
That was the one,
thing.
yeah, with the documents
That's-
in the bathroom.
Yeah, that's a dead to rights one. He's completely fucked on that. Unless they literally fabricated everything in the indictment. He's completely fucked on that. You've got the really big kind of Jan 6 freedom of speech thing, or the
Georgia?
obstruction of the Congress thing. Well, the federal one, Jack Smith, that's a federal case, and the Georgia one is largely echoing that as part of the RICO. Those two are going to be really fascinating to watch. The New York one is just like, it's like a thing, and he shouldn't have done it, and it's probably a legitimate case, but it's like, this is an ex-president who's running for president. Like, is this really what we should be doing right now.
Yeah, and he has to. That's the crazy thing is he has to be in court every day for this.
I saw that they made that ruling.
Well, yeah, they made that ruling, and like,
why? Did they give a rationale for it?
I think that's just for this type of trial. That's just how it is. And because he wanted to go to his son's high school graduation. They're like, you can't do that. You can't be out of court. And I think it's, could be 6 weeks where he generally, I guess maybe for him, this is his campaigning. Like just him being in the news every day as this like martyr is good enough where he doesn't have to be on the But normally he probably would be
to campaign.
Yeah, he would be going town to town every day. And now he's just stuck in New York.
I would have to see the norms on that. Like, is it ordinary that you have a person in court every day for that? Because if not, that feels pretty shitty,
I don't
bad.
know. I don't know. Yeah, I would think maybe.
Well, also they're having, I guess the new thing like last couple of days, they said they're having trouble selecting jurors because they need to find someone that isn't impartial.
Impartial jurors.
Wait, what world?
Do you have a strong opinion on Donald Trump?
Yeah, who's
the dad or the son? I don't even know. Yeah.
Is there a single person that's impartial
In New York. That's the thing.
New York.
In New York. In New York.
Does it have to be New York City, or can they come from? Are they going from Rochester? And
I think that's a good question. No. I think it has to be like probably in the boroughs, the 5 boroughs, maybe Staten Island.
Fuck, that's a skit for you guys, right
Yeah,
there.
but that's
could be
trying to
you
find the
guys
jurors,
going into the forest, finding lumberjacks, finding an impartial fucking juror. You're looking for some Matt Walsh with a beard chopping a tree down. It's like, sir, you know what year it is? You know who Donald Trump is?
I mean, I don't even know if you could be
the guy
impartial.
from The Apprentice?
Once you explained everything, even if somehow you found someone who didn't know who he was, and then you're like, okay, well, you're going to start finding out, you're like, oh, this guy was the president, and now all this stuff. It seems like if you weren't impartial before, you're going to develop some kind of bias. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. But, I mean, the jury select, like, he has to be there for jury selection. Like, and then they keep complaining because he keeps falling asleep every day.
I mean, does he have to be awake for it? As long as his lawyer's awake, fuck it. Yeah. I would sleep through. I slept through school. Fuck it. Why not jury selection? I don't have shit to say.
That's a good point. That's just like him getting just stealing some sleep. You know, if you're gonna force me to be there, I'm gonna wake up early. And
8 hours in court. That means I got 16 hours for the rest of the day to go party. I'm gonna fucking sleep through this shit. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's true. Do you think he's trying to set a precedent to like this is how not important it is to me, sort of thing?
I mean, yeah, to a degree, but also just, I don't know.
He could just also be like a 78-year-old man.
Yeah, he's a 78-year-old man who sleeps like, also he sleeps 4 hours a night or something. So he probably is one of those dudes who's, whenever he takes like a limo ride,
takes a nap,
dozes off and catches sleep here and there.
There was a study where they talked about, there was like a few presidents. There's a lot of like really famous people that'll say like, I famously slept 4 hours, and they're kind of done this study where they're like, there are like 1 in 1,000 people that just like randomly don't need that much sleep.
Do 6 hours and whatnot, yeah.
And then they all get Alzheimer's though.
Well,
yeah.
Like apparently that, yes, you're fine, but your brain still gets, you didn't repair your brain.
Like Jerry Jones is the owner of the Cowboys, is one of those guys. I've said it before, but like everybody's like, he falls asleep everywhere.
Yeah.
Like everywhere, like meetings, like the moment he hops in a car, plane, anything, he's just like, he falls asleep. But he's like, I only sleep 4 hours a night. But you're like, yeah, you make it up in 20-minute increments here and there. And maybe that's more efficient. I don't know, for him.
I feel like when it comes to stuff like that, I think you should always just like look at the military. Like if it was possible that people could make it on 6 hours of sleep, the military would probably be doing it. And if they're not, if they haven't found a way to like break that cycle of needing 8 hours, then it's probably not possible. I doubt some dude on
because they want
YouTube.
people high performance.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you want. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And is the military like strict on 8 hours?
I'm pretty sure you get a full night's sleep generally. Yeah. Maybe if you're deployed or there's like active shit going on,
right?
It's different, but yeah.
So just to wrap that up though, you think that there's pretty high likelihood he gets prosecuted on something and actually convicted.
He'll absolutely get convicted on
Has
these
to.
91.
And then
he's gonna go
on the which one?
91-0. He has to.
Mar-a-Lago will definitely be
that one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that case is so insane. He's like calling one of his employees and he's like, "All right, they're gonna come clear some documents out. I need you to move go through them, take pictures of what's there.
Killing them.
Yeah, I need you to take these boxes out, move them in another room. We're going to tell the other guys that that's everything. So when the investigators come, they don't know. And then actually move these boxes to my house. I'm going to pack them in a plane and fly. Like, it was like so. And he's like showing shit to people, being like, it's like every horrible fucking thing a client could do. I could have declassified these, but I didn't. I'm probably not supposed to show these to you, but I am. So like the mens rea is there for every single part of the fucking crime. And it's just like, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
I guess on a personal level, if you're just a guy, that doesn't seem like it does feel like a little bit, you're just like, all I see is, if you were somewhat impartial, I think you do see, you're just like, okay, they're throwing everything in the kitchen sink at him, and like what you got him is this box of documents. Doesn't feel that hectic, you know?
The issue is that the issue is I'm trying to remember. I went through all the 3 big cases. I think on the documents one, I don't think he's actually charged with willful retention of classified material. I think that the charges all relate to obstruction, and that's the issue. The issue isn't that he kept some things, and even that he showed it to people, blah blah blah. I don't think he
wouldn't
actually
cooperate after.
It's not even that he wouldn't cooperate. It's that he literally obstructed as hard as he could. Nara was trying to get these documents back for a year. It was a year that they gave him until finally.
Why do you think he did that?
I don't know. It was so stupid. It was such a dumb thing. They're giving you a year to do it. And then finally the FBI shows up and starts taking shit. It's like, well, now you're federally fucked. Now you fucked yourself. I don't know why he took... I have no idea. It's so stupid.
I've heard one opinion where he just like, this is all just like memorabilia to him, essentially.
But it's not, because he's literally... In one of these interviews, he's like, they said that I wanted to invade Iran. Well, look at what Mark Milley, okay? Look at what he dropped. This is his plan, by the way. Not mine. Right. Fuck him, okay? This is classified, okay? Right, and it's like, this is classified. I probably shouldn't be telling it to you. As the camera is rolling, this is off the record, guys, right? Ex-president of the United States. Like, my God, bro, what the fuck? Yeah. It's so stupid. And people will say
this arrogance?
Yeah, people will say this thing where it's like, it feels like they're throwing the book at them, they'll kitchen sink, everything's being thrown. It's like,
feels like it, yeah.
But he's also like exceptionally brazen and fucking crazy with the shit that he's doing. Like, bro, slow down.
Yeah.
At least like act like a career criminal. What the fuck? Like, if this was real estate, you wouldn't be saying the same shit in front of a fucking camera. We're gonna kick out all the black people. You'd be more clever than that, okay?
Yeah.
You'd say something different.
Yeah, that was because I'm sure there's other presidents, but to that degree where they would like. If they go, they're calling, they want the stuff back, they would be like, oh, all right, just give it back to them, I guess.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Because like you said, because then the weird thing comes up where it's like the Department of Justice is part of you got your 3 branches of government. The DOJ exists under the executive branch. The president is technically the head of the executive branch, depending on your executive unitary theory and all that. The president could theoretically be elected, Donald Trump, and then go to the DOJ and say like, hey, listen, we're going to kill all these investigations on me. And that's fully within his power to do. So who knows what would happen.
But they would have to not be concluded at that point.
We could just kill him.
I mean, the problem too is like this trial is going to end in whatever 2 months, and then the new one will start. Like he's just going to be jammed up until November. Right?
Yeah, definitely jammed up.
Yeah, for sure. But the 2 federal ones, he could just axe. He can't do anything about the Georgia one or the New York one. But
what happens if they get adjudicated before November? Like what happens if they go through the entire...
The federal ones, there's no shot they will be.
Oh,
it's not possible.
They're super lengthy.
Georgia. Oh yeah, for sure. And then even like, let's say the state one, let's say that New York is like, we want to jail this guy for 6 months or whatever. What the fuck does that look like? Because he could be elected president and he's in jail. Does he get Secret Service in jail? Does he get his own cell?
He would get his own like wing of a jail.
Does he get a green screen at least for speeches, or do we have to see him like from behind bars? Or
I mean, that would certainly hurt America's standing in the world.
That would be insane.
Like America.
Here's our president.
America
he's in jail.
He's like talking shit to Xi Jinping, being like, "Can you wait till I get out of here?"
Yeah.
I mean, America's always fancies itself as like above all this stuff, That
also does make us cool. So our states are very powerful. Our states are so independent, powerful. They can arrest our president. So I don't know. It's so wild. I think we're living in kind of a collective delusion or fantasy right now where we're just trying to pretend like we're not going to have to deal with these unbelievably... Actually, what I think what the institutions are praying for is just please let Biden win, because it would make everything so much more simple. But if Trump wins, there's a lot of crazy questions that are going to be coming up. Like, what the fuck do we do now?
Biden wins seems... I mean, I know that you like Biden, but it seems like there's almost zero chance he makes it through the next 4 years.
Maybe he just has to make it through the next 7-8 months, right?
Yeah,
so you just got to make it through the election.
Just has to make it to.
Yeah. Also, when I say hopefully Biden wins, in this sense, I'm just saying in terms of like knowing what we do with the Trump court cases. I'm not necessarily saying it'll be better or worse than Trump. I think it'll be better, but I'm just saying in terms of even if you're a Trump fan, you have to admit that Trump winning office there's a lot of very challenging, novel, complicated questions that don't have obvious answers to them in terms of the criminal charges and everything, right?
I think it puts all them in jail. He goes,
Do you
you're
think
in jail. No, you think I'm in jail? You're in jail.
Yeah. Come and arrest me. The National Guard is here against the fucking NYPD. Yeah, Jesus, I don't know.
Does Biden have to make it past the election or past the inauguration?
That's a good question. If somebody dies before inauguration,
like, can he win the election and say like, you know what, I'm actually not feeling so great. So we'll just let.
I feel like you'd have to wait till inauguration, right?
Yeah.
But if he makes the election, he can do inauguration.
Yeah, they can jack him up with.
Not great options.
He'll be
for America.
We got a lot of drugs right now. We can keep him hyped up. He'll be.
Maybe we'll get an RFK surprise. Who knows?
It does seem like there's a lot of stuff going on, and it almost killed all the like culture war conversations in a lot of ways. Like with just like the Israel-Palestine stuff, like it does feel like that was the like button on one chapter of America, and that was sort of the start of a new one. Do you find that?
A little bit, yeah. I'm just glad to be done with the trans stuff, because listening to every DeSantis and Florida and new bills and Michael Knowles and everybody wants to talk about trans everything for like years.
Why do you think it's over? Do you think that
because now the Israel-Palestine stuff, the border stuff was big for a little bit, and then we're coming into the election, and I just think there's other things to talk about than trans people in the United States.
Do you think Biden, or do you think much will change like geopolitically with Trump in?
I don't even know. Everything is up in the air and crazy.
Yeah.
They never really solved the trans stuff, though. They're just sort of they're just like, what happened? Like even the like when you talk about the blank fitness, was it? Planet Fitness. You're like Planet Fitness. You're like, so what happens? Like, do you make a new bathroom? Like, do they go on the other
Planet Fitness kicked out the people who complained, and they go, no, this is fine here, and just like if you complain and photograph people in our bathrooms, we're going to ban you for life.
The reality is, for that stuff, I genuinely believe that both sides make it such a huge issue. Like, this sounds kind of shitty, but the reality is that, like, if you pass, you should probably just go to whatever bathroom.
I actually think that's the real thing.
And that solves everything. And most trans people would agree with that.
And you got to give it a college try if you're actually trying to be a chick.
Yeah.
You can't half-ass it. No beards.
Yeah. And and like, because, like, it's so weird, like, because conservatives will say these things about, like, well, I don't want my, little girl see the blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, how weird would I feel if I'm with my son in the bathroom and fucking Blair White comes walking in? If you're, like, a conservative guy.
It'd be strange, yeah.
Yeah, or Buck Angel, if you're, like, you're with a little girl, and your mom, you come out, and then Buck Angel walks in, it's like, well, the conservatives said I got to be, peeing in here, so here I am. And it's like, ooh, like...
Yeah, but no one's thinking of it that way.
I know.
Really, everyone's just like, we don't want them, the girls one. Like, the guys one, the truth is, like you said, the Blair White example, the truth is you wouldn't give a shit. No one would, right? Like, if an actual woman came into the guys' washroom,
I don't think
do that.
Yeah, I think for the majority of it, it's like people make... If Mrs. Doubtfire was made today, the conservatives would lose their fucking minds.
Oh, crazy.
That it's like, cross-dressing around a child, this is trans propaganda, it would be over. And it's like, bro, does anybody actually give a fuck about any of this fucking shit?
The rules should be they'll make Mrs. Doubtfire, but they'll also make ladybugs. That's a good trade-off, right?
Dude, it really does feel like the policy is like, conservatives settle down and like trans people, it's like, come on, you gotta try a little.
And then like,
you gotta, come on.
Yeah, or like, and the stuff that's bad, that people do that are bad, it doesn't matter if you're trans or not. Like, if I'm in the male locker room and some dude is shaking his dick in front of me, I don't feel comfortable. I don't care if they're trans or woman or whatever the fuck. That's just fucking weird. And I feel like most of the laws or regulations or policies on the books will probably deal with 99.99% of situations. It's just like, it got blown up into such a crazy issue with these crazy arguments, and it's like...
Yeah. In Canada, actually, right now, they had, I don't know if you saw, there's a non-binary person who...
That was a pretty good one, yeah.
Who petitioned, who they wanted a sex change, but they didn't want a full... They were like a male to... female. They're not even male to female. They're non-binary, biological male, and then they want a vagina as well.
They won their case.
They won their case to have the government pay for a vagina to be put in, and it can't even be done in Canada because there's no doctor that can do it, so it's being done in Texas. So people in Canada, like, our taxes are literally going for this person to go get a vagina put in.
Listen, I'm all for it if it leads to, like, if I can get, like, a third eye installed or some shit. That could be like the... If you're... Yes. Okay. Well, I want a 12-inch dick now.
Sure.
Okay. And it's important to my health.
Fair.
I mean, the problem is
as long as we extend it more.
Yeah. The problem is people in Canada are like, I need, like, my rotator.
You gotta be able to get a
I need my
horn.
rotator cuff fixed, and it's like a 9-month wait. So can we maybe prioritize?
Do you know how many vaginas we gotta make, dude? You're getting in line, dude. You should be able to get a horn extender if they're doing that.
I mean, you would think...
You're already doing the surgeries anyway. Listen, I've got at least most of a real one
You just
to
go,
work
look,
with.
I need to affirm my gender, I need a fucking massive piece.
What do we do with all those foreskins we circumcise anyway? There's got to be some way we can,
I think so, yeah.
Boys, if you're not using a VPN at this point in your life, you're out of your mind.
What are you doing?
Some of you might even be in these one of those states where you can't watch certain sites without signing your name up and putting your ID.
Yep.
Fellas, we don't want any of that nonsense, all right? Sometimes you might be wanting to watch stuff that you can't watch in your area. Sometimes you might want games that they don't get there yet.
Yeah.
There's a million reasons you should have a VPN. So Proton products are the only alternative to big tech. Extremely easy to use thanks to its interface. Use it and get access to geo-blocked content on streaming platforms or better prices in video games. Provide safety through anonymity. VPNs are ideal for remote work setups. You know, that's a lot of workplaces. They don't want you. They say that you can work here, but you still got to be in the city.
Yep.
Problem solved. And then you pop
green screen.
Yeah, green screen you green screen the Madison Square Garden just in the back of your thing.
Empire State Building behind you. Bingo, bango.
Yeah, you're actually. I'm on the street in front of the Empire State Building. Go to protonvpn.com/Ryan Long. You get 1 month free when you sign up for 1 year, 45% savings, and 3 months free when you sign up for 2 years, 56% savings with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Take advantage of the limited offer by going to protonvpn/Ryan Long. Fellas, if you're looking for therapy that's easy, affordable, online, Talkspace could be the perfect solution for you. So, everyone has things in their life that get you down. You can be affected. You might realize that you want to talk to a therapist, but you're not sure how to get started. Talkspace makes it easy to find a therapist you like. It's convenient to meet online, at home, or wherever you're most comfortable. So Talkspace has made a huge difference in a lot of people's lives. And why wait until something bad happens to talk to a therapist? You don't have to wait. You can just go right now, get a therapist through Talkspace, and therapy can shift your perspective. You can find tools to cope at difficult times, and it can be a guiding light. Getting started is the easy part, so Talkspace makes it easy and affordable. And a lot of people don't want to have to be going to someone in person, so this is a solution to that problem. With Talkspace, you can sign up online, get a personalized match with a provider that's right for you within 48 hours. Incredibly convenient to have your virtual sessions with a licensed therapist from the comfort of your own home. Talkspace lets you send messages to your therapist so you don't have to wait for your next session. Talkspace can help with any of the specific challenges you might be facing. It is also the #1 online therapy platform with licensed therapists in over 40 specialties, including anxiety, depression, substance abuse, relationship issues, and much more. Talkspace is secure, private, using the latest end-to-end bank-grade encryption technology to store client information and complying with the latest HIPAA regulations. Affordable and also in-network with most major insurers. So as a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/boyscast and enter the code SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/boyscast, enter the promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. Talkspace.com/boyscast, promo code SPACE80. So definitely I would agree with that. That was problem solved. I think there's a lot of the kind of the main issues. There were just like so many edge cases that kind of you could point to that you could just kind of like, even when we're talking about the sports thing or whatever, and just the last thing, we'll move off trans stuff, but when there's just like edge cases that you can point to where you're like, that's crazy. And then no one would just say that's crazy. And that just I think that just drove people fucking nuts.
It took me so
just like
long
broke
to
people's
piece
fucking
this.
brains. I've had this conversation with like girls dating or wherever, and I'll be like, you don't understand why like a guy transitioned to girls an advantage, and they're like, we don't know that, and I'm just like, are you fucking mental?
Yeah.
Like shit drove me nuts.
I tried to figure out for a long time, why do so many people talk about this shit when it's such a small problem? And I think you're right. The issue isn't how many people are doing a thing or how big the problem is. It's how many people are willing to defend it. Because there are a lot of things where a crazy thing happens. Like a woman's like, my 4-year-old child is trans. Like when somebody comes to me, he's like, will you agree with trans people? And I'm like, yeah, I guess it is. And it's like, what about for mine? It's like, depending on the medical research. What about this woman who said her 4-year-old was trans? I would say, oh, well, that person's fucking crazy. And then you just move on from it. And you don't have to make a big deal about it.
I mean, there's a million like crazy religious, people who like fuck their kids up. Like,
and nobody, also, the most important thing is, nobody likes these people.
Yeah.
Nobody likes the edge case guy. Have you ever been, I'm sure you guys have been like planning a show or you've been doing some shit and some dude is like, okay, well, in the 32nd row, if you don't have enough chairs here for blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this is like the 50 millionth thing on the list to plan it. It's like, bro, can we like get like the dates before we start obsessing over like the color of the fucking curtains? Like, there's always like that guy who's like, what about it? Like, kill yourself. But yeah, fuck. These people suck.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That is a good point.
Yeah, you did. It was a lot of arguing over education, whereas you're right. It would be like if you're trying to organize a big thing and then someone was like, okay, and this is yellow, and you're like, okay, that's not yellow, it's black. And then they're like, no, it's yellow. And you're just like, okay, there's no way I'm going to get past this. Like,
And then we have these fantasies, like the trans bathroom rape epidemic, and I'm like, what the fuck are we even talking? Is this happening? Does this happen? I feel like I feel like there was like one case where this happened ever, and like because I know that there were more, I'd be hearing about them. And then it's also even just like the concept is weird. Like trans.
What about the jail stuff? What do you think about all the guys?
Yeah, that's dumb.
That is a real thing where guys are legitimately transitioning so that they can go into female jails, and then they're having sex with the women. And
if they want to do that, they should only bottom surgery people. If you want to commit, you want to commit hard, you can go in. But it's going to be dickless.
I agree, 100% agree.
But then now this is how you get people riled up, and they're like, okay, well then who's paying for that? And then they go, you are. And you go,
yeah, that's
right.
True.
You go, who pays for the piece to get?
That is funny.
Well, then you can just bring Trump. Okay, meeting of the minds. Bring all the sides together. We allow people to do it, but only the pedophiles. So there, everybody wants to chop dicks off pedophiles, and then they can go do their trans fucking jail organization. So everybody wins. There you go.
It does feel funny for like a guy that's like just like a super Republican that your tax dollars had to go for paying for guys' dicks. you had to go pay for guys to get their fucking.
That's why they want smaller government.
Well, anyways, it feels like Israel Palestine sort of really did change the whole. Even on like the left wing side, it was like so many of those people were arguing for like censorship and all that stuff, and it was just like, okay, well now we don't want censorship because our viewpoint's the unpopular one.
Yeah, people. I think every political principle doesn't really exist like en masse. I think people generally just kind of want whatever works for their side at any given point in time, and if it's benefiting them, they support it, and if it's not, they toss it. I think freedom of speech is a good one. When you're in power, fuck freedom of speech. But when you're the little guy, freedom of speech is like the most important thing in the world.
Yes, on aggregate. But would you not say that? Do you feel that way about yourself as well?
No, I try to be. Usually, when I think of a thing, I try to always like put it on the other side to see like, well, how would I feel about this? So if I'm thinking of like a government policy, I'm like, how would I feel if the government could do this and then Trump was in office? Would I still feel okay about it? I try to think if like the other guy has the hammer.
So some people do it.
Yeah, some people do, but it's definitely. I don't think it's the majority approach.
No chance. It's the majority.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people, I don't think they really think about the principles underneath the thing. They think about the things, then backdate why they think that, probably.
Basically, yeah.
I mean, most people just care about like one thing anyways.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Well, it becomes sometimes the actual principle becomes somewhat fashionable, like, and it's not partisan. Like, that's why, comedy might be like that. I'm sure that to some degree there's lots of other places where it's like, in comedy, right or left, like the principle is just like fashionable. Like it's very like ingrained with the identity of I'm a comedian. Was like I care about being able to say stuff because that's the whole deal, regardless of right or left. So then it never really changes on that front. But to your point, yes, you probably care more when it's coming at the things that you're trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like right now, conservatives, like in the 90s and 2000s, I remember they were fucking talking about violence in video games they wanted to get rid of. You had like all the gay metrosexual stuff and keeping all that shit out of like, TV shows and how horrible that was. And then now that the left has like all the levers of power, but because back then the left were like, well, no, we need freedom of speech. We're like LGBT people need to be able to go on these demonstrations and these marches, and that's the most important thing in the world. And now the left is like, well, the paradox of tolerance. We can't have certain voices speaking because it actually hurts society in the long run. And now the right is like, actually, all voices are important. We should all be allowed to say what we want. And it's like really important that all of us have the opportunity and freedom. And it's like, yeah, it's just whatever.
I think that was probably like one of the biggest things that I don't know if like wrong or maybe duped probably would be the better word, that like I sort of believed like conservatives cared about free speech for a second. And I just like it probably was like a 6-month span where I kind of believed that. And then I was like, oh, they're just like, even like comment, they're all just like using whatever issue they can at the time and they don't give a shit. I think that was probably like one of the most things that I feel like I was like duped on.
Yeah, I've had a couple moments in my life where I'm like, fuck, I was a useful idiot.
Yeah.
I remember my first big one was my first big one is when I started to swing more to the left. Genuinely when I became a StarCraft professional gamer and stuff, I'm used to being in areas where everybody's different than me. They're Koreans, they don't even speak English, or it's very boring. And I travel a lot, and it's like, I'm used to being with a lot of people that don't look like me or sound like me, and I genuinely have no problem with that. And I would make these arguments, like, I don't know why, like, minorities or certain people, like, oh, we need more representation. He's like, doesn't matter. Do you really care that much? And I genuinely felt that way, because I don't care. I can watch anything with anything. But as soon as some of the media started to change, and I think there was like a FIFA game or something that came out. The main character was like either black or Hispanic or something. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I don't care. Everybody that agreed with me before was like, hold on, what the fuck? Like, I don't identify with this, or why the fuck is this like this? Like, I don't like, this is weird that like these characters are like women or black. I was like, well, I thought we didn't care about that. And then I realized, fuck me, you were just like behind me because I was supporting the status quo. But when the status quo changes, the principle changes too, apparently. And that, yeah, I hated that. That drove me fucking crazy.
Do you think that, race relations stuff got better or worse in the last 5-6 years?
I feel like it's gotten a lot better, but I feel like the perception of it has gotten a lot worse. Like, I think that like race relations and gender and stuff, or maybe relations kind of has perception built into the word. I think in terms of like how we're doing with race and gender stuff in the United States, I think we do better than any other country in the world. We got a lot of different people that live here. Fucking go out to New York City. The amount of people that live here that do well, that have the opportunity to do well and everything is amazing. But yeah, every day it feels like we're basically like, this is basically Jim Crow and apartheid, and this is basically like the most sexist, racist country ever. It's like, the fuck?
Right.
People talk like it's the worst it's ever been.
Yeah, but they're saying that because they're trying to advance some sort of point that they have, so they'll just say that without any evidence, right?
They also say because the human condition is to acclimate to a surprising amount of stuff incredibly quickly. Everybody's felt this when you buy a new phone and it's the coolest fucking thing in the world for all the 48 hours, and then it gets its like first ding or first scratch, and it's just like your phone. It's like, whatever.
Or you move into like a nicer place or whatever, or you move into a worse place, and either way you're just like,
people
after
like
a week
lose,
you go, whatever. It's fine.
You can lose limbs and shit, and you can lose senses, your vision, hearing, and all the happiness reports. These people, they tend to level out like pretty quickly. It's really surprising. So like when you think of like sexism or racism or whatever, when everything is pretty good and then you see something bad, it's like, this is fucking horrible and terrible, and you don't always have the backwards looking perspective of, well, where did we come from and where are we now?
Right. And a lot of people will say, generally like, racialized groups will be like, oh, racism is the worst it's ever been. But again, they're trying to say that to advance some sort of thing. Right?
Basically, yeah.
They're not just saying that because it's fact.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. But I'm just saying the fact it traces down to a human feeling. It was like what we talked about earlier, like if you've got 1,000 watchers and then 10,000 and then you go down to 2,000, you acclimate it to this 10,000 really fast, and then going down here like really sucks because you're already reset. Yeah, so people...
Yeah, it does feel probably actually what's happening a little bit.
And especially too, because you got to keep in mind, I try to say this a lot when I go over like young, like when 17-year-olds are trying to like Me Too each other and shit, and people are like, why the fuck is this kid acting so crazy? Like, you got to remember, this guy's 17. Like, this breakup probably is the most traumatic thing that's ever happened in his entire life. Yeah, it is. When you break up with your first high school girl, that's like the most important thing, because you're 17. What the fuck else has happened to you? And it's hard as like a 35-year-old, especially like if you would have asked me, for instance, the libertarians will love me for this one. When I was 25, if you would have asked me like a 22-year-old and an 18-year-old, I'd be like, ooh, I don't know. I can definitely see the issues. Now I'm 35. And I'm like 25, 18, like, it's all
the exact same.
Yeah, what the fuck? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like, yeah. And
I look back at being a certain level of sad sometimes about girls, and just I'm so embarrassed with myself.
But I think as you get older and you look back and you're like, okay, yeah, this is all like fucking.
Yeah, you're like her
moping around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But at the time, it's the end of the fucking world, right? And what would you even say to yourself at the time? Don't worry, bro, it gets better. You're like, no, whoa, you don't understand me. And it's like, I am you.
I used to like break up with girls and then mope around like, well, you don't understand. Fucking, I have to let the one go, even though because I have to be single and do my own thing, like Eminem at the end of A-Month.
Yeah. And you're the protagonist, and you know everything, and nobody understands your struggle.
And they'd be like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll just another girl. You'll find one." I'm like, "You don't know that was the perfect."
She's like a snowflake, man.
And that's the worst thing in the world to hear. What do you mean, I'll find another? You don't understand. Samantha, the 17-year-old, nobody had the same jelly roller pens that she did. Okay, fuck you. All right.
No, that's the most things. Sometimes you look back and you go. But I guess the good part is that you'll never be like that probably ever again with a chick. But I guess the worst part is your innocence is gone.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. The only scary thing now, though, is that you used to have more of an opportunity to kind of like grow and be crazy. Like I brought this up a lot, that like people talk about like college kids being radicalized and shit. And it's like, you should be radical when you're a college kid. You're 18, 19 years old. The fuck? Of course you should be crazy. But now with the social media landscape, you can immortalize your crazy, and you get way more attention than you ever should.
Yeah.
No offense. I don't give a fuck what Greta Thunberg thinks about fucking global warming when she's 15 years old. Why the fuck does anybody care? I don't care what this 20-year-old thinks about minimum wage. You haven't worked, motherfucker. Your allowance was more than minimum wage. Why the fuck are you saying anything? But like, I understand why they want to say it, and they should be. But now when you've got social media, and it's like, I might be 20, but I can end your fucking life if I tweet the right thing. Okay? I might be 19 years old, but I have like 50,000 followers on Twitter because of my takes. How does a person like that grow? Why would you?
Yeah, probably eventually they just make the growth comes from they make one misstep and then get destroyed. Like,
Yeah, but
you know,
it's
they
so
say
much
the wrong
more harsh.
It'll be
Oh my
that's what I'm
God.
saying. It'll be harsh. It'll be like all this growth like condensed into this like.
No, but Dave, what he's saying, like how you become better is little steps in the one way. Okay, not there.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? You're almost like a little mole. Like where you're just like, okay, actually that's a bad idea. You just get little shocks.
Right.
Yeah, you
when
fuck
you get
up
big
and you
shocks,
correct, and
when you get big shocks, you stop doing anything.
or you become super radical.
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
I want to be a shocker.
Yeah, exactly.
That looks fun. What is he doing?
Yeah.
I want that guy's job.
Wreck people's lives.
Yeah, it is. It's obviously they figured out how to hold their teachers hostage, but again, like I think Israel Palestine stuff shook that up as well.
Yeah, it definitely showed a lot of people a lot of different things about different political groups that they weren't aware of before.
No,
Yeah.
the craziest thing I saw is that dude Jackson Hinkle or whatever, and he's I know he's insane, but he's now saying like I'm an American patriot, so I stand with Iran.
Russia?
No,
Oh, Iran now?
Iran. He
Okay.
goes, I'm an American patriot. I stand with Iran. I'm like, what? Like, Jesus
That
Christ.
guy is one of the worst grifters.
It's insane.
Horrible,
Yeah.
I
But
don't know that guy.
You don't know Jackson Hinkle, really?
No, I think I know the name, but I don't know
He's
what
like-
he does.
I don't think that many people do. I think his shit is crazy
He's
botted.
crazy.
It's crazy botted.
What does bot in mean?
He's got like fake followers, fake engagement on all
Oh,
this shit.
Yeah.
how do you get fake engagement?
He's I think he's literally paid for by Russia. He had like a Russian girlfriend, like a state given girl. That's not proven, but she was like a pageant winner, like Russian chick that came in
really?
for a while. Yes. Yeah. I think he works. I think he takes a paycheck directly from.
It
either
is
RT
crazy that
or-
Russia today was actually just like giving people money to make TV shows in America.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they had a channel.
What's that guy's name? Yeah, what?
Lee Camp or whatever.
Lee
But
Camp.
they had a channel here until the war, and then they were just like, we're removing the channel. But
Yeah.
there was no idea that it wasn't like Russian propaganda.
Also,
They just had
funny thing too. I'm shitting on conservatives a lot. I try to even it out, but like funny thing too is conservatives are generally the ones right now. Generally, they're the ones that are primed to believe like every crazy conspiracy on fucking everything. But it's so funny because when anything regarding Russia comes up, they're like, "No, I don't think they would ever do that."
Right.
Not Russia.
Yeah,
No.
why would
Russia?
they?
Would they really try to? No. I mean, or maybe they do a little bit, but like we do more. We do just as much. Did you see the big story that came out about like the directed energy weapons?
The Havana syndrome stuff? Yeah.
Like every conservative's like, no, I don't think that's real. And I'm like, this is your prime material. You don't think it's real? No, that's Russiagate.
That's
oh, okay.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's because it was on 60 Minutes, and they go, well, anything on 60 Minutes is a lie.
Yeah, I know.
Right? So they just go, well, if it's on 60 Minutes, must be a lie.
Yeah, and because it involves Russia, and Russia now is like the fake thing that you attack Trump with. No matter what Russia does now, it's like I don't think that.
I mean, they did kind of shoot themselves in the foot with like, you know, the whole Russia collusion stuff. Because,
little bit, yeah.
Like, do you? What is your thoughts on that? Because
I mean, there was more good stuff that came out of that investigation than the 50 million things we got on Benghazi or Hillary Clinton's fucking emails or any of that shit. But nobody recognizes that. The FBI was probably too politically motivated in what they were doing, and I think the Durham report said as much. But I mean, like, there was a lot of crazy all those Mueller indictments about those Russian entities that were operating the United States that were like controlling Twitter. Some of the
like
larger
bot farms and
not
stuff?
just bot farms. Like there was an account called 10_GOP. Everybody just thought this was like the official Tennessee GOP party. It had like over 200,000 followers. Like it's a Russian controlled account, like proven Russian controlled account, or all these like Black Lives Matter accounts.
Yeah, I saw the Black Lives, and they were organizing stuff. Like
they were
didn't have
organizing marches and
marches
protests
and
and
stuff?
shit. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah,
but
but
nobody gave a
isn't
fuck.
that something you would expect from an adversary? Like I would expect that, you know, like America's probably has some sort of, you know, department that's doing that in all sorts of other countries. Like, isn't that just like some sort of
You might expect it.
cold
but
warfare, like tech warfare almost? Like,
the issue is you might expect it, but then we're not allowed to like do anything about it. So, for instance, I think you would expect that, but that's part of the reason why the FBI and the social media companies will have like this cooperative relationship where they're like, "Oh, give us a heads up, you think something's weird." But then when they're doing that, now the conservatives are like, "Oh, well, actually, that just proves a collusion that they're trying to, you know, help their political friends out and everything." It's like, okay, well, maybe they also just want to know there's like crazy Russian accounts that the FBI might know about that Twitter doesn't, and maybe they want a heads up on it. But I don't know. Yeah, it's all like there's like so much political opinion here that is divorced from the facts that nobody can really have a reasonable conversation.
and most people are not willing to, like, you know, you see a tweet and you just go, "This is what I believe in," so I'll never look into this, who runs it, and people are so easily duped. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, me included.
I mean, look at that, the genesis of that fucking kitty litter story. God damn.
What's that one?
Oh,
where Joe Rogan, he must have saw a Facebook meme or something, and he's like, they're putting kitty litter boxes in schools for kids to be trained.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. I remember that was going around.
It was a guy said it.
Yeah, someone said it, and then you try to look into it, and you're like,
the guy was making a joke. No, basically, it was a right wing Congress person, or I don't know what, a Republic, one of those, something
politician,
political guy. He was basically representing the school, and he was like, all these people were being furries, and he essentially stood up and he was doing an interview, and he was like, we got with these litter boxes everywhere. We're gonna have to call pest control on these people. He was being like hyperbolic.
Okay, sure.
And then that's what.
And then Joe Rogan repeated on his show, and then the whole country for like a couple of weeks is talking about there must be furries in the classroom that are like state sponsored.
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes you just see something and then you see.
Apparently, the furry thing was an issue. The guy said though, but they weren't shitting everywhere.
Yeah, they weren't using litter boxes.
It'd be the equivalent of like too many goths. Like the kids are. It was like normal in some ways where you're just like these goths keep crying and blocking out the hallways.
But it's more like so many people start amplifying that story, and then you just you go on Twitter and you see it 100 times. You go, I guess this happened, right? Because most people don't have the time to every single thing they see to go investigate whether where's the original source of this. They just go, all right, 100 people are saying this, it must be true.
Yeah. Do you ever play poker?
Yeah,
a little bit.
Are you familiar with the term table image?
Yeah, of course. It's like whether you're like a loose or a tight player.
Yeah, I think the problem with little stories is for all my poker knowledge is 15 years old, because after they banned PokerStars, fuck PokerStars.
It was hot for a minute. I sort of got that.
But you have a table image.
Chris Moneymaker and all that stuff.
You have a table image. When you bet or do things, people are giving you credit for, or they're analyzing you through the image that you've created at the table. Right. That's how you're.
That's why some guys will pretend that they're drunk.
Sure.
And stuff.
Yeah. Or even like you said, just tight or loose players. The problem with a whole bunch of little facts, and people even on my own stream get mad, why are you being so pedantic on this thing? And I'm like, because if you accept these 50 million small minor incorrections, it makes these minor incorrect things, it makes the really big bullshit story a lot easier to believe. And you have to be right on the small stuff, because if I come in every day, let's say that we all worked here, I come in, I'm like, God, Ryan tells so many fucking racist jokes in the elevator. Okay, hypothetical, right? And I say this. Yeah, I know, but we'll say for sister, it's hypothetical.
The elevator is fucking open
every
season.
Day, and I kind of say this, and then you kind of repeat it to people, and blah blah blah. Let's say that we do this for a few months, right? And let's say even Ryan hears about it, he's like, whatever, I don't give a fuck. Let's say that you get a black employee, and let's say this guy's got an axe to grind for whatever reason, and he's like, fuck you, you fired me on some racist shit, and you actually did some crazy shit. Well, now you don't want to be looking at all of your coworkers and be like, okay, hold on. Now I know it seems like it. And they're like, okay, well, you have said a lot of race shit for long. I was like, no, I didn't. That wasn't actually real. That didn't happen. You're fucked at that point.
Yeah, at that point,
over. Yeah. So the small, little, tiny lies or stories that people tell may not be a problem in and of themselves, but the perception that it changes, and it makes you more amenable, or makes you more receptive in the future to a big bad story, and that's the problem. So even the little lies, I think it's very important to keep those in check.
Yeah. I was talking to someone last night actually, and about QAnon and how people could even believe in something like QAnon, and then it really did seem like there's so many things that just literally all just start in 2015 when Trump just started calling them media liars, and he was right about so much of it, and he really opened the eyes, and then it allowed these insane things to latch on, because people are like, yeah, we are getting lied about everything, so why isn't QAnon real?
Yeah, also people aren't evaluating who's giving the criticism, because people will say some shit like, oh, they're all liars. Well, what about you? Because you bring up that Trump said that, and you might have pointed that out, but what was Trump's first big foray into politics? You remember the first big issue in 2015? No. It was that Obama was fucking Kenyan.
Right.
Nobody remembers that. He was the one that pushed that stupid birth certificate with Sheriff Arpaio or whatever from Arizona or whatever. That was him.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's
I didn't know he started the Kenyan thing.
I don't know if he started it, but he was the one that grabbed it and blew it up into a huge thing. We need to see his birth certificate. I was like, what the fuck?
I know it sort of is going to sound like a bad cope, but to me, to some degree, though, everyone sort of looks at him as like, yeah, but he's not coming out here in a suit being like, I'm the arbiter of truth, the way the news is.
It's the Chappelle line if he's an honest liar, basically, right?
Yeah, I don't, exactly. I just wouldn't see it that way, because you're when you're like, oh, Trump's lying too, and you're kind of like, yeah, duh. And then the other one, and then with the other people, when they're lying, it's it feels like they're lying, and then if you say they're not lying, everyone calls you a conspiracy. That shit's, I guess, makes you makes me feel pissed off, and then like being pissed off and then also feel like you're being lied to and then feel like no one would listen to you. I think it's like a snowball of things that just then you instead of looking at the next option with equally as critical eyes, you're just like all in on the next thing. It's kind of like the guy leaving the ex-girlfriend, and then the first girl the like was the worst girl ever, and then the next girl's just like the first girl I see, he's just all in. Again.
Yeah, you definitely create conditions.
You leave an abusive boyfriend to another abusive boyfriend.
Yeah, you can't. You have to treat people like adults. You can't treat them like parents, where you're just like, listen, you don't understand this right now, but you'll get it in the future, because then it's not like they turn 18 and now we can level with you and everything. People are too condescending sometimes, and they don't give enough space for, antagonistic thought to deal with it and then see it dealt with.
Yeah, kind of, exactly. What do you think about Candace Owens versus Daily Wire feud?
I don't even know what's going on with that.
Really?
I'm always primed to. Well,
I know you debated Candace Owens sort of or whatever. That's why I thought you were.
Well, I don't think. I followed it, but I don't think anybody knows what happened. Right? That hasn't been made public yet, because Candace keeps hinting that she was fired for some insidious reason. I'm guessing related to Israel or Jews.
Yeah.
And Ben Shapiro challenged
Seems
her
like
to
it's
that
kind
debate.
of true.
Well, it depends on what you mean when you say that. Because it could, for instance, it could be the case that Ben Shapiro and Jeremy came to a decision that they were going to let Candace go because she's parroting anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, which I think is reasonable. Or it could be the case that they got marching orders from the Mossad to get rid of Candace Owens because she's asking too many questions, which would probably that'd be horrible if they did.
No, I think it would probably be more like, you could even just remove all of it. You're just like, hey, we have a company with 6 people and we all kind of think the same shit.
Sure.
And then one person's thinking, all the exact opposite shit on what my cardinal issue is. Let's get rid of her. Mm-hmm. But the problem is you built your thing being I'm this free speech guy. So it's just straight up a pickle that you're in.
A little bit. I blame conservatives for that. When you talk about freedom of speech, you're talking about the government. That's what freedom of speech means. But conservatives for a long time have played a dangerous game of, what about Section 230? Twitter shouldn't be allowed to ban anybody and blah, blah, blah. And now they've gotten themselves in this world where, rightfully so, they should be allowed to fire or hire who they want. That's not a violation of freedom of speech, but your audience has been primed to think that any time you fire somebody or any time you do anything relating to speech, you're violating a freedom of speech, which isn't true, but you've primed them to think that. So
that is true. And they just wanted to basically talk shit about all the trans stuff forever, and that's why they're essentially citing the freedom of speech stuff. And,
But there was sort of, because you tell me, because you probably know about this stuff pretty well. It is true that when you say freedom of speech, you mean the government, but there was sort of a culture of, you can't say anything that wasn't just because of the government. That so I feel like when people are freedom of speech and let's say they were talking about comedy or jokes you should be able to make, or, what you should be able to say in a movie without getting in trouble, what is that then?
I think there is a principle, there is a concept of people should be allowed to say what they want in certain arenas, and you should have the freedom to do so. But just you need to separate that out from the legal part. I just think that's important, that they're two different concepts.
There's a legal part.
They're similar concepts, but the enforcement mechanisms on both of these are different. One is what should the law be, and the other is what should we push the culture to be. And I agree generally with the culture of freedom of speech, but it's not the law. You can't enforce that legislatively.
But they do have. So that's why I'm saying when people. It's in a pickle a little bit. It's same with Elon Musk having Don Lemon on and then kicking him off. Even if you're right, you're allowed to do that. It just looks like you're going against your principles.
It looks bad, but the reality
and
is...
you are, though, right?
Well, I don't think so. Assuming... I don't know what they've all said
Don
in the
Lemon
past,
stuff bombed, but the problem is he didn't say, he goes, his interviews just do terrible numbers. Why would we pay him $10 million?
Well, that's not... He kicked him off before that interview.
Oh, yeah, right, that's true.
But I'm saying that
is true.
But for that, Elon has a right to allow freedom of speech on social media platforms, and he should champion that, I would hope. But that doesn't mean he has to pay people to work for him who have ideologically different views and then to disseminate that ideologically different point of view, right? He doesn't have to hire him as
I know it is weird.
Yeah, I mean, the New York Times or whatever, and or even NPR were talking about this guy didn't even say anything that bad, and they're you're suspended.
It would be nice for me to start a media company in the future. I really want to, but when I do that, I'm not hiring the most diverse point of views. It's going to be stuff that I generally agree with.
Right.
I feel very strongly about freedom of speech. I don't think that you YouTube or Twitter or the government should like be restricting heavily freedom of speech without a really compelling reason, like child sex material or whatever, stuff like that. But when I go to hire people, I'm not going to pay a guy who's like an anarchist to talk about how evil like all government is and we should all go crops.
The question is, if you hire a guy that has similar views to you and then he starts leaning that way, at what point do you fire him? That's really the question.
It would depend on whatever the mission statement is in my company. When I feel like it's going in violation of that, I'd be like, this is not what we're here for. If you have a life-changing moment and you want to spend the rest of your days evangelizing everybody, that's not what I want on my platform. Like, go do that somewhere else.
Is that you have to be pro-Israel in the Daily Wire mission statement?
It might not be explicitly, but there's probably going to be some parts of like foreign policy that will encompass. That'd be my guess. Like if you're pro like super American interventionism all over the world, you're like America needs to go to war with every single country or whatever. I imagine that's probably not part of the Daily Wire's mission statement.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to be a total isolationist and you're like America should pull back embassies and bases from every country in the world, that's probably not part of the mission statement. So yeah. But also I think there are people that aren't 100% on board that Israel train on the Daily Wire. I think Candace Owens' issue isn't the Israel stuff; it's the weird Jew Holocaust anti-Semitic shit.
I think she's just too deep into the Jew shit.
Yeah, like when she was tweeting out a few weeks ago, like who started porn?
And famous last words for a lot of people.
Which one?
I just say it's been. I mean, there's two things that have gotten a lot of people. You start getting really deep into JQ. You start getting really deep into race IQ. Those are the two. How many content people of like that was? Remember? You go, what happened to that guy? You go, you could pinpoint the day that he started getting all in on that.
But I wish people too, like. I think if you genuinely want to explore those topics, I think it's fine to do so, and I think you might even be able to get away with it. The problem is just that they don't ever actually explore, right? Like I'll run into people in debates and the guy's like, I'm skeptical of the 6 million number. And it's like, okay, well, what do you mean by that? It's like, I don't know if I trust.
He says it's 10 million.
I don't know if I trust like all the stuff. Or it's okay, well, like, what have you read on this? Okay, well, nothing. Okay, well, like, what have you what have you researched on this? Like, why do you think, for instance, you don't believe the 6 million? How do they come up with that number? Well, I'm not sure, but doesn't it seem like a lot? It's like, well, maybe, or maybe it's not that much. How many Jews lived there before? Oh, I don't know. It's like, okay, so you're skeptical on a thing, and you've got a lot of questions, and you've been repeating these questions for like 6 months. Like, imagine I walk around New York City, and I'm like, Ryan Long might be gay. I think he might be gay.
I've been saying that for a while.
I think he might be gay. He might be gay, isn't he? Like, do you really think he's straight? Do you really think? I mean, like,
it's not exactly
God.
Journalistic integrity.
Yeah, Jesus. Like I say, hey Siri, show me a twink, and it brings up like this guy's YouTube page, right? Is he actually? But then you're like,
I go the other way around though. Imagine you said that, and you go, "Oh, Ryan Long might be gay," and then all of a sudden your YouTube channel gets taken down, and your Twitter channel get down. You might start being like,
"Yeah, wait,
what the fuck?
What does Ryan have his tentacles?"
Maybe he is. Yeah, true.
You can see why that would make people fucking like break their brain for now. You only talk about that.
I understand.
And you're like yelling in a well that I'm telling you this guy's gay.
And I understand what you're saying, but like I feel like we make way too many excuses for adults, and at least for political content creators, right? Like I can understand why a person might feel a particular way, but you should know better. Like there are going to be some things that are just such fucking hot topic things. If you don't deal with them carefully, like you're going to get banned because a lot of people feel ass mad about this thing. It doesn't necessarily mean the thing is true, right? It just means it's like
definitely there's things where you have to deal with them like crazy carefully,
or it's like that there'll be like the comedian quote. I don't remember who said this initially, but it's like, or it's not even. I think it's just like an edgy quote. It's like if you want to find out who rules you in society, find out who you can't made fun of.
Well, they say and
it'll show like a kid in like a wheelchair, and it's like,
so
well,
that's
like, this is my rule because I can't call this guy cripple. Like fuck me, I guess. Right? Like come on.
That they attribute to that's like a big anti-Semitic thing, and that they attribute to Oscar Wilde.
Oh, do they?
But it's not. It's not. Oscar Wilde never said it.
I've seen that attributed to Voltaire.
Sorry, not Oscar Wilde. Voltaire is the one. Okay. Yeah. But it's it's but it's not. And like I think I can't remember who it is, but it's just like some guy who said it. It's like some dude. I don't know. It was nobody of
as most things are
importance, and I
guess Danny's mom rules me.
I get. I get that a lot. That specific quote.
What do you think
Jew stuff?
Is there a case for that America shouldn't be involved in? Do you think that like right now, as we're talking about this, like there are people everyone online is kind of saying this is World War III, it's going down kind of thing. Like, do you think that there's a reasonable case to say that like America shouldn't be getting involved in this? Like, why are we spending money? If Israel wants to do that and you want to support, why are we funding this?
I think the issue is that when people analyze the future, they always think of it in terms of like either this could happen or this could happen, and they'll look at something like America could do a thing or we could not do a thing, and they'll look at all the bads and maybe even some of the pros, and then they'll look at us not doing the thing, and they'll be like, oh, okay, we should just not do the thing. And I think what happens is people get confused because they don't realize that the second option that you're evaluating, that's not actually what's going to happen. It's not going to be, should America do the thing or not going to do the thing? The question is, should America do the thing or should Russia do the thing? Should America do the thing or should China do the thing? Because if America steps back, there are going to be other people that are looking to exert their influence. And then your question becomes, who do you want to guarantee safe passage through the Mediterranean? Do you want it to be the United States or do you want it to be Russia and China? Like, who do you want to have that influence?
Couldn't you do this, though? Couldn't you say we're not getting involved in neither are you guys?
But how?
Well, you're basically...
Well, wait, we do that, but what you just said, you're not going to get involved either. Then we start funding separatist groups.
Yeah, that
we
is
start funding the
involvement.
Mujahideen. We start funding other people. Well, we're going to coup your shit. We're going to fund all these separatist fighters. The FSA, maybe in Syria. Like, that's what we're going to say. Well, we're not going to get involved. You're not going to get involved either because we're going to fund these people. And then you get the proxy wars.
Well, you don't have to fund anyone. You just could be like, hey, China, Russia. Like,
Yeah, but I mean, by saying, hey, don't do that, that is,
I'm obviously
that is an action. Right?
Okay, I'm oversimplifying a ton.
But you go, because then you go, don't do that. And they go, okay, or what?
I guess the argument... the argument is that they make it worse a lot of times if you look at it. I guess you're saying compared to what?
Exactly, yeah. Because the Soviet Union made a lot of things worse too, you know? People are like, should we be involved in any of this? Like, how do you feel about NATO and why does it still exist today? And it's like, well, after the invasion of Ukraine, I bet like Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are probably really happy that they're in NATO. They probably feel really good about that right now because they know they're not getting invaded. So yeah, people will look at the messy world or the messy things we have today, and then they'll make you contend with some like idealized alternative. It's like, well, fuck you. I don't have that idealized alternative. It's like arguing with every socialist. Like, oh, well, socialism would be way better. Okay, well, where the fuck has it worked? Did it work in the Soviet Union? Well, that wasn't real social. Okay, what about fucking Vietnam or China? Well, that's not real. Okay, well, fuck you then. I'm not going to compare my messy real world implementation of capitalism that has to exist in the real world and be messy with your idealized, on paper bullshit. And I think that interventionism is the same kind of thing. Right.
Yeah.
It's the 30-year-old telling you the perfect life to live again.
Basically, yeah.
And what would America do otherwise? They just got to bomb something.
What did you think about doing debates with Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro? Did you think that they were like, when you're doing that, did you walk away being like, oh, that wasn't so good? Or did you walk away being like, that guy's impressive?
I think Ben is smart. And I think it's interesting watching him twist himself into a pretzel defending Trump. I think it's very funny because I do consider him to be a pretty smart guy, one of the smarter people in media. Jordan Peterson has insight and was very cool when it came to psychology things, but I feel like he's been completely swept away in the anti-establishment conspiratorial narrative on everything. Like, he hit every single major belief. I think I brought up
What do you think that is?
My theory is I think people have mind break moments to where something really bad happens to them by one side and they're forever thrown into the other. It happened with Brett Weinstein for the Evergreen stuff. It happened to Jordan Peterson with the C-16 stuff. Like, you have your one moment and you're like, fuck you, I'm never going back over there. And then you're just like completely lost.
I've actually had that with people that I know that were like, obviously I think our worlds are a little reversed because you live in Miami and we live in like New York comedy scene. But like, I know some people that were like crazy, like liberal types, and you just be like, and you just then when you look into it more, you're just like their whole life, like their whole last 5 years was 4chan, like trying to fucking take them down. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and just like
I get it.
Yeah, so you kind of you do a lot of times become like who you, because you start an enemy and then you're just always fighting them. So I mean that might happen. Yeah. With the last thing I was gonna say about just debating in general, because I had sort of a theory, and you can tell me what you think of it, but. The first question is, do you think that, like, are you trying to change people's minds? Like, is that the goal?
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like I have a theory that whether it be like debating or writing or anything, it's, you actually change more minds when it is like the consequence, not the goal, in some ways that, for example, like if you're writing something and my goal is to change people's minds, but if your goal is to like do the best at it, you'll actually change more minds. Like, people's minds are usually changed more by someone that they kind of look up to, or someone who performs well, or like, you're like, oh, that guy's opinions on everything were pretty good. But
It's your ethos, pathos, logos triangle. There's like different forms of rhetorical strategy to make something.
Okay, what does that mean?
It's like you can appeal to people through like your character, through the type of person you are. You could appeal to people emotionally, make them care emotionally about a particular thing. You could appeal to people through like facts and logic, because it's just different audiences and at different points in your life, people are always going to feel.
And what, and the three are what?
I think it's ethos, pathos, and logos are like your three. It's like the rhetorical.
Which one's
triangle.
Pathos?
Fuck, don't ask me. Logos is the logic one.
Logos is logic.
I think ethos, is character.
Emotional? Oh, character.
I think. and then I think pathos is the just like appeals to emotion, I think, basically.
Yeah.
So I think ethos might be like, oh, this guy has been building charities in Uganda for his whole life, and now he's here to talk, and I respect this guy's character. And then like pathos might be like, hey, you want to make this law illegal? Well, how would you feel like if your own child was impacted by this? And it's like, oh shit, okay, you're right. And then logos might be like, listen, you want to do rent control, but 55% of people have been kicked out of their houses as a result of this, right? There's like different ways to hit a problem.
It really does kind of cover all of them.
Yeah, well, ideally, yeah. But even in your own life, you'll notice this. Like if you're arguing with like a girlfriend or whatever, or a boyfriend, if you're arguing over things, it's not always going to be like the logos, fact, and logic approach to do everything. Sometimes you might have to demonstrate through character that I think that going to the gym is good, and actually I feel healthier, and it's like been really great for me, and you should try it too. Or sometimes it might be emotional arguments, like I think your mom or dad would really like it if you would do this too, or sometimes it might be the logical one. Yeah,
women don't tend to respond well to facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah, but neither do men. So careful. Nobody responds well to that one. Yeah.
Facts don't care about your feelings almost felt like, so many philosophical and political movements are a reaction to like it going too far the other way before a little bit, but like the facts don't care about your feelings. It feels like it's funny, especially now, because you're just like, feelings is the only thing that matters, especially when it's like war. It's like hearts and minds, like all that sort of stuff. It's like, unfortunately, politics does care about feelings.
It's funny because you really get like the shot reverse of that exact ideology, because we went from facts don't care about your feelings to Donald Trump, who's a person you're supposed to take seriously but not literally. So it's like, have you ever heard that saying before?
Yeah. That's good.
So you're getting like, oh, I want the emotional impact of what he's saying. I'm not thinking literally like.
So having your cake and eating it too a bit.
Yeah, or it's just like, you see, all of it's bullshit at the end of the day.
Yeah, I guess a little bit, but yeah, you're right. So I guess I'm more making like a practical statement that you're sort of actually looking at technically. But I was sort of saying like, it just feels like if your goal, even if you're arguing with someone, like if your goal is to change their mind, you're probably less likely to change their mind than if you actually are just like, your goal is to explain this better, or to, I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes people will watch a debate with,
no, but I'm not saying I'm saying that
you're saying that it's a byproduct of what you're doing, people will believe, rather than it's the stated goal.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Second order effect, almost like.
I think
it's a second order effect is exactly what I'm saying.
I feel like a really good example of this is I feel like I can tell when a movie is trying to tell me that women are really strong.
Yes.
I don't think that was the goal for Alien or Aliens or Alien 3.
It just did it.
And I don't think that was the goal for Kill Bill, but that was definitely a byproduct. Like, there was never a point where I was watching either of those movies. I was like, oh, I get it. She's a woman. Jesus Christ. Because that like wasn't the focal point of it. But the result afterwards was like, oh yeah, I guess women can be samurais and do shit, and that's like cool as fuck. And you just walk away thinking that. Whereas like in a Star Wars movie, like one of the newer ones, you're like, okay, she can never fail. I get it. She's like always amazing because we can't show a woman failing and blah, blah. Like it feels more like you're hitting it over the head.
Pandery.
Yeah, it feels pandery. And then I feel like less likely to be receptive to it than just like, well, show me something cool, respect the medium, do
that's
really
the exact
well here.
principle.
Yeah.
And those things end up just being worse.
So would that be the same principle with the logic, ethos?
It can be. Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
Would it just be that you're just? Would that be just described as you're just doing it poorly?
Yeah, because the only reason I don't like to generalize it because it really depends on the topic and it depends on who you're talking to. Like if I'm stepping into like a very blood sportsy arena, like my goal is to eviscerate the person next to me. I am going to scream at you and make you feel like a fucking retard because that's what we're here to do. But if I'm on like a chiller platform, like we're going to have like a calm back and forth, and I'm going to try to be like more constructive and say like, oh, I think that these things are better, and like, this is the type of America we should be proud of. And
was interesting with the Jordan Peterson thing with you. It was exactly interesting what you're saying. Like, I feel like a lot of times hanging out with someone, you're kind of like, oh, what shit that we both might be into? You're kind of almost, whereas like you, Jordan Peterson, it was weird. You were trying to find something that you didn't agree on. Like, like you were kind of needling around until you found like a thing you could argue about. It's like a funny, like, it's just like a funny, like way to do interviews.
Yeah, I have a thing with my audience where it's hard for me sometimes to talk to people that I agree with a lot because I just am more geared towards argument.
Yeah, like you and Norm Finkelstein,
that is horrible.
That was funny.
My God.
I don't know. He's a character. That guy is.
Well, Danny said the best thing, probably true. We're just like, get people who agreed with him, left agreeing with him, and people who agreed with you, left agreeing with you,
Yeah,
probably.
well, pretty much. But I mean, I'm sure there's some people who kind of maybe don't know, but this is such a...
There's people in the middle, and there's people that you don't see, but you have to know they're there. And now I can feel this because I've been doing this for 10 years, I guess, for political stuff. And now I can see them more as I continue to grow, and they send me emails, stuff like that. Okay, they're there. There's really hard to see because both sides that agree or disagree are screaming the loudest.
Right, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And maybe, you know, those are not the type of people who leave comments on stuff, so you really just don't know. But, you know, you got to figure, like, on a video like that, I don't know, I'm sure it did millions of views, but it wasn't millions of comments, so there are people who are just watching and not I guess, engaging.
Yeah, and your goals are always just like planting the seeds. If you're talking to somebody you completely disagree with, you're just planting the seeds. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Shit, dude. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, man,
and are you going to start a media company? Is that what's next?
That's the goal. I finally have shows running in my Miami studio now, so hopefully.
So you have shows running with you doing them?
Yeah, I'm doing 2 shows right now, yeah. So
that's the move, right?
Yeah, it seems to be.
Or you're going to hate it and just be like, why my life was good without running a company like this?
I don't have more. It'd be more fun to set the media agenda. Like if the Daily Wire wants to cover something, everybody will talk about it. And I had that power like on Twitch and kind of in my spare on YouTube, but it'd be cool to have a broader ability to set the media diet.
We're all talking about this thing.
Yeah, we're going to talk today about this thing because I think this is more important than whether or not, you know, this person's too, you know, much of an asshole to go to a trans bathroom or some shit, I guess, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. And you're gonna hire like hosts like 5, or are you gonna do the same thing as
other? Yeah, I got to look for other talent and see, but we'll see. Yeah, it's down the road. We'll get there.
You gonna put Young Turks out of business?
I don't know.
All right. Destiny streams 5 hours a day. You can find it on one of your many channels, but you stream on your main channels.
Yep. Kick.com/Destiny, YouTube.com/Destiny, Instagram.com/Destiny. Yeah.
Always appreciate you coming by, dude.
Thanks a lot for having me. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right. Peace.